G'day, and a big welcome back to ALGS for yet another split. We're super excited to have you here, and of course, Genome alongside me, Elfish Guy, for another split. It's split 2 of 2022-2023. This, of course, is APAC South, and Genome, it's nice to be kicking off another season of ALGS. Yeah, indeed. Look, and as always, every season, I come in on the first day and I say, hey, there's been a lot of changes. Once again, there's been a lot of changes. Obviously, you know, we talk about the changes that have been happening to the game. There's a lot sort of to dig into there, but not only that, there's also roster changes galore. As with every season, there's new teams coming in as well. So a lot to break down, and that's kind of what we're going to go through to start things off. We're about, I'd say, like 10 minutes away maybe from the game starting. We'll have to wait and see. Sometimes these things do take a little bit longer on day one, but I can see the players starting to filter into the lobby, so we should be getting underway fairly shortly. But where do you want to start, Genome? Do you want to talk about maybe the changes to the game first? I think that's probably the top level stuff that maybe needs to get covered before we go a little bit deeper into some of the teams and stuff like that.
You know, the fact that you've got scans on players now, you've got edge teams that might be able to see that and use that information, but you've also got... And you've got to try and use some of that information to infer where the ring is going. And if nobody knows where the ring is going, it's kind of hard to tell.
A little bit chaotic, but hey, I mean that is something that this region is kind of known for, a little bit of chaos every now and then, and I think that's why a lot of people do actually tune into APAC South. But yeah, obviously we need to touch on how things have changed as far as the teams are concerned as well. I mean, look, you've still kind of got, I think, for the vast majority of those top teams that did kind of finish well last season, they've sort of returned in some way, shape, or form. You know, IBG, Moist, Dewa, Onic, etc. All those kinds of teams, they're all back again. EXO have departed as an org, but the team still sort of exists. So that's Tom Yum Kung, as they used to be known ages ago before they joined EXO. That'll be Dexter Killer Pos and Asia. A little bit of a roster change there, but something we can dive into in a little bit. But these are the 30 teams that we're going to get to watch. And like I said, I think the vast majority of teams that most people would know and most teams would love, most players would love, are back once again, and obviously it's sort of down towards the bottom 10 or 15 teams. Maybe that's where you're kind of seeing a lot of the moving and shaking happening.
Yeah, with the teams that got, obviously, you know, 22 teams from Split 1 get to stay through. They qualified from their performance in Split 1. And then there's the bottom 8 teams that come up from those, the Challenger circuit, right, Elfish? And this time, a lot of those were actually Chinese or Taiwanese players coming through. So we definitely had a little bit of a shake-up in terms of, you know, region representation. And that, of course, as you know, as we've talked about, is you know, there's so many teams from the Chinese region who just played so aggressively.
Yeah, indeed. Look, I kind of want to obviously touch on some of those top teams as well. I think the big ones that we need to talk about, I've mentioned IBG. They have a little bit of a roster swap this season, something that we'll get into in a little bit, but they're back again. I think with a lot to prove, right? They came into Split 1 of APAC South, and you know, I didn't really necessarily have the expectation that they would walk away in first place in that split, but they did. And then obviously there's an expectation that comes with that as the quote-unquote top-seeded representative from the APAC South region. They go over to Split 1 playoffs and, you know, they didn't perform as well as maybe they would have hoped, I don't think. So I think a lot to prove coming into Split 2 here. Moist Esports, they seem to be sort of chugging along quite nicely now that they've broken that third-place curse. If you remember from last year, the 2021-2022 split, they were pretty much hard stuck third when it came to the APAC South region. So since breaking that, going into Split 1 this season, second place there, they finished 6th in the Split 1 playoffs, which was the best performing team from the APAC South region, and I don't think that was a massive surprise for many people who would have watched our region. I think most would have probably considered Moist to be maybe the best team going into the international event, right? I guess in terms of form, right? IBG definitely looked good, but MT, Pricey, Waltzy, all very experienced players. And so I think for most, they would have been the team that we expected to see finishing well at that event, if anyone. And they did a really good job of that. It was, I think, a little bit disappointing as well to maybe not see Daewoo United be able to go overseas and play in the Split 1 playoffs, but they had a really good season last season, so hopefully they'll be able to jump back in. Again, a little bit of a roster change for them that we can dive into, but yeah, they've done really well fairly recently, I think, in terms of their domestic results. It's just those international results and their abilities to go overseas that have sort of let them down. 28th, I think they got in Split 2 playoffs last year, and obviously they didn't manage to go over for Split 1 playoffs despite qualifying for it this time around, so that sort of sucked for them. Further on down the list, I think the next team that is actually really exciting to watch and see flourish, and this was the storyline that we talked about a lot in Split 1, was obviously Onic Esports, formerly known as Boogie Borders. Raki, Fussy, and Shady, really, really good players, obviously had high expectations for them going into Split 1. They managed to do a good job there. And then they went over to Split 1 playoffs. And look, I didn't even know I expected them to finish in the top 10 there. I think, you know, you could maybe make the expectation new team probably wouldn't perform that well, but they finished 7th. So right up there with Moist and, yeah, top 2 teams from the APAC South region overseas. But look, this is what we're playing for today and over the course of this season in APAC South. Shouldn't be anything that's too surprising for anyone. If you've been watching ALGS, you'd be well familiar that the prize pool is a pretty generous one for the region, and on top of that, obviously those spots to qualify and go overseas and play against the international competition is always going to be a big talking point, which, you know, I think is kind of what most teams are looking forward to, because that's where they're going to be really being able to earn the big bucks and really being able to put their name up in lights. And so that's sort of where we are in the entire ecosystem. We finished off Split 1. That was at the end of last year, at the end of 2022. And jumping into 2023, we'll look forward to the Split 2 playoffs, and then, of course, ALGS Championship, which is quite a big deal as well. And your performances in Split 1 and Split 2 kind of taken into account when it comes to qualifying for ALGS Champs. And yeah, I mean, looking forward to sort of seeing how things do continue to shape up here in the APAC South region. I mean, I know there was a big discussion as well around how things were going to look when Dark Zero, for example, moved overseas, and what we were going to see from the APAC South region in that respect. Was anyone going to really be able to step up and take that mantle and be sort of the top dogs in the region, and also not only that, but also go overseas and perform well? I think that's sort of been answered, to be honest. I think we've seen, obviously, that there is some talent that continues to flourish within this region, Genome, and hopefully that'll continue to be displayed as we head into yet another split. So here's one of those big changes that we were talking about. Obviously, EXO are going to be coming through and changing their roster as EXO, the org, sort of departs from ALGS, and the roster sort of continues on in some way, shape, or form. They're now known as Tom Yum Kung, which is Killerpos, Dexter, and now Asia, who is replacing Ziki. Asia did come through with a bit of experience. He had a bit of experience in ALGS. He, I think, was playing on Emmanuel most recently. So someone that's been around a fair bit, but Killerpos and Dexter are definitely two very experienced members as well for this roster. I think the saddest part is obviously that we're not going to get to see EXO in this season of ALGS, because I know that that is an organization that has really supported Apex Legends quite a lot. But yeah, look, unfortunate as it is good to see that the team kind of continues on. And I don't know that I'm going to say that I'm necessarily happy to see Tom Yum Kung as a name back, because that was always one that I struggled to pronounce. But you know, here we are, and it's good to at least see that this team is going to persist on forward as well. A couple of other roster changes as well that we did mention. We'll get on to some of those as well in a little bit, but it is time for us to jump into game number 1 of ALGS Split 2 for APAC South. It's groups A and B taking each other on, and of course, as always, we'll start things off on World's Edge. Honestly, I think this is a pretty stacked group. We didn't really get to go over the groups too much, but I think this one is actually kind of stacked. There's a lot going on there. And we'll get into it. We'll get into it as we get through things, and, you know, we'll see how we go. But, you know, if you've been wondering, why is this basically Elfish Guy just monologuing to the camera or to the stream? Genome's having some microphone issues, so you'll just have to deal with me for the moment, and hopefully that's acceptable. Hopefully I'm still keeping you entertained. Solo casting, not the easiest thing to do, but we'll take a look at how things do play out here as we start to get a bit of a look at groups A and B. Now, a lot of obvious in-game changes as well, so you're going to be seeing different compositions all over the place. I'll just have a quick look, and I'm seeing obviously a lot of Catalyst still. I think the vast majority of teams have taken Catalyst. There's a couple of teams that didn't actually manage to get all of their members in. So Homogird and Fate are both playing as a duo. And I would say, aside from them, both of whom have dropped Catalyst, just a quick look across, all bar one team, I think, no, all bar 2 teams are playing the Catalyst. We've got Daewoo United, who are not, and Truth Esports also are not. So very Catalyst heavy lobby, which I think was to be expected. But yeah, quite a lot of variety. We're seeing quite a few Seers, quite a few Bangalores in there as well. Valkyrie still popping up here and there. Crypto as well. Horizon is a little bit of a pocket pick maybe for one or two of these teams. And I think Fate has the most interesting composition here, which is them playing as a duo. They've just got the couple of members there, so it's a little bit unfortunate. Homogird as well to mention, obviously Wraith and Watson. So it sort of seems like these two duos, which, you know, Homogird I'll just mention there, Wraith Watson, but Fate as well, Wraith Caustic, I should say. Seems like maybe if you're just a duo, you've decided to take the Wraith for whatever reason. No one else has really taken the Wraith, I don't think, just from a quick look across the compositions. Here's the zone. And of course, you can see it's gone fairly central. Looks like it's going to be heading over toward Harvester based on the beacon scan that's coming through from one of our teams. And so most teams are just going to be trying to quickly work their way in that direction. But as Genome did say, you know, maybe less teams around now that have got the ability to scan the beacon. Not so sure that's necessarily the case in this lobby. We do have a lot of teams to be able to grab that info, but first kill on the board going to be coming through from Pricey. So no surprises really to be seeing Moist Esports getting into the mix pretty early on in the piece, and they're definitely going to be a team that we'll be expecting to see walking away toward the top end of this lobby, if not in first place. Who else is interesting in this lobby? They were United, definitely. They did make a roster change, so it'll be interesting to see what they're going to be able to do. Lahim for Easy Flash. I think that's a pretty big change up, but Lahim obviously someone that has quite a bit of experience at this level of gameplay as well, so should be able to slot right in there. And oh, you can see Moist is still looking to continue to put pressure onto that last remaining member of Let's Go, which is Crazy Kong. Trying desperately to put the medkit on, but I really think it's pretty much over. Waltzy, once he gets on top of you, should be able to finish this one off pretty comfortably. Maybe some third-party shots coming through here to keep Crazy Kong alive. But I'm not sure for how much longer that's really going to last. So Moist, they won't quite get away with what they would have liked there, in that they could have gotten the team wipe, but still, I think they got 1 kill point out of it, so definitely a decent start to the day. And they've also obviously not got the worst of positions inside this circle. It's not maybe ideal. We'll have to wait and see which way the ring does pull, whether it goes back out towards the Harvester, out towards the west a little bit. But if it comes back over toward Lava Siphon, then yeah, Moist are in a great spot. And they'll be very happy with how things are progressing so far to start off with. So, what else is going on in the lobby? 20th guaranteed. Interesting team name. I think they actually finished 29th or something similar last season. So, maybe not quite hitting the mark there. But you've got a few members there that have been around the block quite a bit. Rico especially, someone that even actually was able to go over to one of the international events with Sutaraiku back in the day. So it's good to see them back, and hopefully they'll be able to put some numbers on the board. This is X and Y. Team number 20 in the lobby. And they're a team that comes through from China, I believe. Have a little bit of experience. You know, I had a little bit of a look and see what they've been up to. I haven't really ever seen them in ALGS before, but it seems like there's quite a lot going on within the Chinese region that they're up to. They're playing quite a bit, and so maybe they're going to be a bit of a pocket pick potentially for this season. I'm not necessarily going to go ahead and say that I think that they'll be the favorites by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe they'll surprise a few people here and there. Casuals on our screen as well. Another team that is, I believe, a new team coming through, qualified 9th in the qualifiers. Sway we've seen on SRY before, but Rice and Zaki, not too much info on those two, so we'll get a bit of an idea maybe later as we do go through the season as to how they're going to perform. And right now, this is out toward the northeastern side of the zone, having a little bit of a look at Eternal Photon up against Akuma. Whether or not they're going to run into one another, it seems like Eternal Photon is really just trying to keep Akuma at bay for now. Not sure this is really going to result in too much of an exchange. If worst comes to worst, I think Akuma can actually just disengage this and run through the geyser area and rotate in that way. So maybe a few pot shots. I mean, just having a look on the minimap, it does seem as though Akuma, they're not shying away from this fight by any stretch of the imagination. So they're definitely at least trying to show some presence. bleeding out a couple of shield bats here as well. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think this is a super ideal fight for either of these teams to be taking. It means they're bleeding a few resources here and there, but there isn't really any danger of a third party going on, to be quite honest with you. There's just a lot of teams down south of them, and so everything else seems to be okay. Nothing in fragment. No teams in fragment. No one really looking in their direction, so they're happy to just keep those pot shots going back and forth. I can hear you. Yep. All right, well, as far as what else is going on around the map, I mean, obviously we're watching this POV for a little while. I don't think there's too much happening there. I'll just briefly update you on the rest of the rotations coming through from teams like Truth out towards the western side, towards staging. They're probably the furthest away from the zone at the moment, starting to make their way through. MDY coming in as well from the north, ADL down from the south. And... well, apart from that, yeah, everything seems to be pretty chill. Teams have worked their way in through Harvester. Everyone's sort of locked up in positions in Harvester, Lava Siphon, and just to the north of Lava Siphon. And that's actually where the zone has pulled. For those of you that remember where Moist was holding, they have pretty much got a favorable ring pull alongside them. Onyx 505 and Golden Stage will be very happy with the ring pull. So those are the four teams that we're kind of looking forward to. Going to be the teams that seem to be in a good spot heading into phase 2.
Yeah, well, with the circle pulling over to Lava Siphon, it's like it couldn't get any better for Moist, really, could it, Elfish? I mean, you know, you start off with the best loot in the game, and then the circle pulls straight on top of you. This is honestly a dream start to Split 2 for Moist.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, look, I mean, you can't really complain about it at all. I don't think that there was anybody that really expected that would not be the case for Moist, but it is always good to sort of get the, get the legs working early on in the piece and start the ball nicely. Because I think if I remember correctly, last season maybe they started a bit slowly. I think maybe they finished something like 4th or 5th or something in the first day that they played. We were kind of like, oh, okay. So we'll see if they can avoid that today. But yeah, obviously. They finished quite strong anyway, so it doesn't really matter how you start, as long as you qual for those international spots and then perform at those events. That's kind of what everyone's looking for.
Well, I mean, if you're picking up, back-to-back victories in the regional finals, and as we've seen with Moist, doesn't matter what level the game is being played at. Honestly, the higher you ratchet up that tension and that tempo, the better they are going to do. That's just the kind of team they are, and that's just the style of Apex that they play. Having a look at Eternal Photon over here, this has got a lot of the old Ant roster playing for them. So some of those Taiwanese players, obviously they were trying to have a little bit of a scrap in the, one of the hills going down there into Budget Siphon up the top, and unfortunately the other teams are kind of too busy fighting right now. So you got MDY White and Akuma up the top there, still trying to work out if they should maybe try and pick up some kill P. A couple of the teams who were over in Harvester are going to try and make their way through now as well.
Yeah, Truth Esports under a bit of pressure right now. You can see Noel is low on the shields, does manage to get that pop back up. Now it's Sage and God that we're kind of worried about a little bit. But it seems like they may have been given a little bit of room here, and so they should be okay. Inside the ring is the team that they're sort of taking a bit of a look at. We're watching now ADL, who is dealing with Fate coming in on a rotation in their direction. But behind Fate, they'll also have to be aware of Daewoo United, and it looks like Daewoo United have just actually rocked up behind Fate. You can see there in the kill feed. Legacy gets a knock onto Tix, and Fate does get eliminated as well. So, Antu down at the hands of Daewoo. So each team picking up 1 point apiece, but they'll have to deal with one another now as they have to also think about their rotation into this zone. It's starting to move.
Yeah, look, Moist have read it perfectly, right? You know, they went for one of the northern buildings, not across the ditch into Budget Siphon, just within Siphon itself, and so far the circle just keeps pulling back and back to them. So these teams that are over in Harvester are having to look to make that move, and there's still a little bit of a space for them, but the ones, you know, a little bit further down south there, you know, Daywa ADL, like we were just looking for, they probably have the harder way into that circle, with Popcorn trying to hold them out there, as you can see on that map that's popping up. And then over up towards Budget Siphon here, we've got Onyx holding down one of those spots, hoping it might pull over that side, as well as Golden Sage, and we saw the duo of Eternal Photon. And of course, the way you play these buildings has completely changed now as well, Elvis, because so many teams have Catalyst. You know, it's a really big difference.
Yeah, and you can see that sort of coming into effect here as well. The wall's up for MDY. Feiju trying to clutch this one out, but unable to do so. And MDY White does get eliminated. Limo, Orkchan, and Crusader are going to be the benefactors of that one. And you can see ADL Wolves actually there on the minimap are going to start to make their rotate in as well. As that ring is going to pop, we'll get an idea of just how happy is Moist going to be. Onyx as well. Like we mentioned, two of the top teams in this region, it seemed like, coming into this split. And already it looks like they're just starting phenomenally today.
You can see some of the teams here struggling with those Catalyst walls. You're going to be seeing a lot of those this season, guys. I can guarantee you that. You know, how do you play around it with your own team? How do you play around it when the enemy team locks you off? I mean, the wall lasts for 30 seconds. It's like, as far as fights goes, that's a long time.
Yep. I mean, fights can be over in definitely less than 30 seconds, that's for sure. So sometimes gives you a little bit of room to breathe, I guess. But overall, yeah, definitely an impactful legend that we're seeing coming through this season. As I was talking about a little bit earlier, I think like pretty much 90% of the teams have actually picked her up for this lobby at least. So no surprises.
Yeah, 90%. Wow, that's I'm sure we'll get the exact stats later, but if it is anything close to that, well, to be fair, there's two duos, and neither of those duos have a Catalyst on their team. So if you take them out of the equation, because you know we generally don't try and
two out of 18 that didn't pick it.
Yeah, wow.
If we disregard those two teams that don't have 3.
That's nuts. I'm just trying to. I wonder if that's going to be higher than Seer. We might be able to get those stats later on, hopefully. But yeah, like from some other preliminary results I'd seen, Elfish, like Seer was generally getting picked at a higher rate than Catalyst, and you know, Valve was still definitely up there. So the fact, if Catalyst really is the most picked legend this season, yeah, we're going to be getting a lot of those walls, a lot of those Dark Veils.
Yeah, well, we'll have to keep an eye on that as we do go through. Bangalore, you can see the ultimate coming out there as well. Seen a little bit of this season. Did get picked up a little bit here and there last season as well, but yeah, it's something that I think is a bit of a comfort pick maybe for a couple of players, but it's definitely not for everyone. You can see Akuma right here up on the high ground, now having to work their way in, and I've just seen a team try on my screen, on my POV. This is actually the team. This is great. I think it was. So who was it? It was one of these teams was trying to do a Valve ultimate, and they just got picked out of the sky by someone with a Kraber before they could fly.
Yeah,
so
fights going on every single side of this right now. I mean, Popcorn tried to come out of the tunnel, got a couple of sticks, but couldn't quite take out XMY. They got taken out a second later. As you can see in the kill feed, everything just lighting up here, and Akuma doing their best. You can see this wall, the way it interacts with, you know, the geometry, the terrain sometimes is a bit funny, and you do get little windows through it if you've got some funny shaped rocks like that. Now Onyx, they of course were playing up the top at Budget Siphon. They've got a nice little gatekeep position here. They're actually going to be in this next ring. It looks like it's going to be pulling in a similar direction. You remember the 1v1 at LAN between Hal and Yuki. It's going to be, I think, a somewhat similar ring to that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very open circle as well, isn't it? Once we get out of, out of all these buildings that the teams are holding, I'm just taking a bit of a look at where 505 is holding in particular. They're the team that's sort of out to the west of the zone. Forgotten Mexus and V, you can see them kind of on the top left of your screen. They're the team that's maybe, I think, actually kind of almost I don't want to say best positioned, because obviously they've got a lot of ground to cover, but they're the team that's kind of already having to deal with the circumstances of what this next zone is going to provide for everyone, because everyone else is sort of sitting in a building, sitting in sort of a compound. But right now 505 is just playing the little bits of cover that they can. They are watching as the Dark Veil goes up on top of that cliff. Again, going to be seeing those all over the place. And just a few pot shots. But I kind of like this for 505, right? They're the first rotator in a way, so any team that's going to be heading into the zone is going to have to deal with 505, getting some pot shots off at them, not to mention, obviously, all the other teams around the place that are firing off at them as well. And there's Moist getting into an engagement against Golden Sage that really does not last long, and that's good news for Moist because Ring's pulling their way in. Moist is going to have to move. They're going to have to get off this high ground.
They do, and they get a couple of armor swaps, and that allows them to keep going, but they don't have time to get the med kits off, and they do have to move in because they're not within the ring. They go up against, this is Buriram United down the bottom. Once again, against all odds, they actually win out that fight. Incredible use of the high ground and just beaming a couple of guys there to come through on that one, but then 505 is going to push in. I think that is going to be almost too hard for Moist. That said, they've got a Dark Veil to climb behind. Maybe they can use this cover to try and stay alive a little bit longer. I think 505 have got them, and now we're down to 3 squads.
Yeah, indeed. 505 did lose V. He's on the floor, but getting raised in the meanwhile. Onyx is having a bit of a stoush, and Fussy, well, he's not getting picked back up, but maybe there's a world where Raki can survive. Crusader trying to put the pressure on there and deny that. He's going to have to work his way around this wall, and actually does go down to Shadi. So Onyx, well, they'll manage at least a second here, but, you know, funnily enough, the team that we were talking about being in a bit of an awkward position, 505, they're actually going to walk away with a really clean win here. Mexus has got the Digi sights, the Digi threat, so he can see through this smoke, and he's kind of just farming right now. It's not a fun time to be Raki, who just gets picked back up and then knocked back down, and that is as clean of a win as you'll see to start things off in a season of ALGS. 505 will walk away with it. Not a bad shout either. 9 kills from them to start the season off. So, yeah, a good win to kick off the season for them. Mexus, Forgotten, and V will be very happy with that.
Solid. I mean, yeah, Moist with 8 kills, Akuma with 11, so a couple of teams there are, you know, doing well to capitalize on their positions. As we said, Moist from the start, they picked that building, they picked that spot, and it was, yeah, it was just kind of, I wouldn't say play to perfection, because obviously, you know, they didn't quite get over the line in the end, but honestly, it would have been hard to play it much better. It was really solid from them. Yeah, 505, they kind of just had that in the bag at the end. Unfortunately, Onyx just took too much damage in their second to last engagement, and that made it really tough once they came out. I mean, 505, I'm not sure they even knew how many members were left alive of Onyx, or they probably just would have pushed into the building and kind of finished that last member off, right? But once the grenade went in there and then they saw the hits on the knock shields, they knew it was all over.
Yeah, indeed. Look, obviously to mention, there was some solid moments from a couple of other teams there as well. We did talk about Moist a little bit right towards the end there. They finished, I think, in 3rd place. Quite a few kills came through for them. You know, so to be expected, I guess the top teams are the ones that have obviously been able to work their way through into decent positions. And yeah, I think for me, like 505 is one of those teams that I'm kind of interested to see maybe do a little bit better this season than what they did last season. They finished 14th. They made some roster changes. We'll talk about those in a bit. We've got Iron Blood Gaming first to sort of touch on here. Player K and Pana coming through from the previous team, and Strafing Flame departs in favor of Jarrow. It's an interesting little change, I think, isn't it? Because Jarrow is obviously a very experienced player. Lots of veterancy on his behalf.
Well, yeah. No, sorry. Yeah, no, it's interesting in a couple of different ways, right? Because, you know, not only do you have your IGL in Strafing Flame leaving, not only do you have, you know, one of the most dangerous players in the region in Strafing Flame leaving, but then you've got to try and, you know, you got to try and make up for this. This is a LAN team losing one of the key pieces from their team, and how do they go about that? Well, luckily for them, there was a very good player, a player who's been to LAN several times before, waiting in the wings. Obviously, Jarrow, did get removed from the Moist Esports roster halfway through last split. And, it was a contentious change at the time, but with how Moist have been performing and, everything they've done since then, it seems like it was a good change. That said, Jarrow's still a phenomenal player. And if you're looking to try and pick up someone, in a team of that caliber, to have him waiting around, I think that's honestly a very good opportunity for Jarrow, and probably one of the best options that IBG had to fill that slot in the roster.
Yeah, I don't think you can look at that and say this is going to be a change that is going to negatively affect this team in any drastic way. If anything, they should be able to perform as well as they did last split, which I guess is quite a high bar to hit, right? Because they did finish first last split. But I'm looking at somewhere within probably like the top 5 would be where their goal is for a team like that, even with the roster change coming through. So a lot of the time, you'll sort of see a roster change and you'll say, like, I don't know about this team. Like, we'll give them a week or two, or to sort of get into the flow with whatever this new player is. But I think putting Jarrow in with his experience and whatnot should hopefully work out to no problems at all. Was there anything else that you want to touch on, like any other team changes there, Genome, or anything else that's sort of on your mind? Because I know obviously you had some mic issues at the start of the show. So was there anything that you didn't get to touch on before game 1 that we should still touch on before we get to game 2?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's so much to talk about, right? Even down to some of the community, some of the teams coming in from the challenger circuit, right? I mean, you've got AGL, Aggressive Gamers Lunging, which, by the way, is just one of my favorite team names that I've ever seen come through. I mean, people they'll put the 3-letter team names that are just like, the first letter of all the players' names. Not a big fan of those. AGL, Aggressive Gamers Lunging, fantastic. So on board with that. But in terms of who's playing on that roster, you've got Bolin, QQ, and Jackie1, right? Now, Bolin and QQ, of course, they're the Taiwanese players, that were joining Roy at LAN, because of course some of the Chinese players were having the visa issues getting over there, so they kind of had to go for Taiwan, which can get those visas a lot more readily. Obviously, they still did fantastically. Back at Champs, I don't think Bolin showed up quite as well, honestly, in London as he did in Champs. But back in Champs, I mean, Bolin was, without a doubt, one of the best players, just mechanically, and how much damage output you were seeing from him at Champs. So these guys have obviously got some real caliber, like some real pedigree, a very high caliber of play. So for them to come through from the challenger circuit, I think is fantastic, and I'm really excited to see how they do as an aggressive team.
All right, well, let's have a look at Hermagerd as well. Their change, another big one, obviously. Belkin coming in. That's a big name that we've seen a lot within the APAC South region. You've still got Jolas and Xavier Heavier coming through from the previous roster, which was not a bad performing roster. I didn't think. Like, this was a team that was able to put a little bit on the board last split. I mean, 24th probably not where I would have liked to have seen them hitting. I think they can probably shoot for a little bit higher than that, but qualified pretty comfortably in the split 2 qualifiers. So be interesting to see what this team can do.
Yeah, it will be. To be fair, they didn't make it through. They got relegated. They were in 24th spot in split 1. So as a result of that, they did have to re-qualify. But with the addition of Belkin, they've managed to do that. And as you said, Belkin, very popular player from Indonesia, has long been quite a skilled player. Just has never quite found his way into, well, actually, is that fair? So he's never quite found his way into one of the top teams. I mean, maybe back when, I'm trying to think, he's been on quite a few different rosters actually, throughout the history of APAC South. Maybe if you go back as far as like Wolfpack, one of those teams, I guess that was sort of one of the better teams in the region. Will he find that kind of success on Hermagerd? I'm not so sure. I mean, I think they're definitely a team that deserves to be in that top 30 in Pro League, and they proved that by requalifying again. But are they going to improve on their previous placement of 24th? Hard to say.
I mean, I think he's got a fairly decent resume, actually. Like, when you go back and look at his history, he played at the Split 2 playoffs with Revenant. I think they went from free agents in Split 2 last year to Revenant. So, has that international experience. He played in that Direwolves roster for a little bit as well. In Champs in 2021, which was like the online era of ALGS. But, like, overall, there's a lot of... there's a lot of good teams there, I think, for him. But... Look, I don't know. We got to take a little bit of a step back here for a second, Genome. So we've got a little video for you to take a look at, and then we'll jump into game 2. All right, welcome back to ALGS APAC South. Thanks for sticking with us as we get rolling on day 1 of the season. It's time for us to jump into game number 2. Genome 505 did pick up the win in game 1, but you know, the usual suspects, the likes of Onyx, the likes of Moist, getting themselves up inside the top 3 as well. Shouldn't be too much of a surprise if they continue to post results like that over the course of today.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, right, this is a pretty stacked lobby when you look at, you know, the likes of Onyx and Moist and all those kind of teams sitting up in there. So if you're doing well in the A versus B lobby, I'd say there's a good chance you're going to do well if you're making it to that regional finals. And yeah, we have had a lobby restart, so probably will be just another couple of minutes before we get that going. And work out which one we're going into next. But yeah, look, while we wait for the lobby to get going again, look, we've actually got a little bit of a treat for you guys. One of the teams recently, IBG, that we were just talking about, they've actually released a really cool video going over the LAN tournament that they were just at, and we've got a little teaser here for you to check out that.
Well, there you go. If you don't know who IBG is, then that's a good opportunity for you to get to know them. I think it's a pretty long video, isn't it? You know, like something like 40 minutes or so. So yeah, it's like almost basically a documentary almost sort of thing. That
and only episode 1.
Yeah, you can really get to know this team or these players and the org and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool to sort of see that kind of content coming out. It's not, I don't think, the normal kind of content that you get from an esports team.
Yeah, and you know, especially like in APAC South, right? We don't probably have as much org support, so the fact that IBG are coming out and investing that much into the team and you know, showing that kind of that quality level on the content is really awesome. You know, it was fantastic to meet those guys for the first time at LAN, of course. You know, haven't seen them there before. You know, from Loki, the coach, to Player K, strafing, and to Panna as well. Was obviously not the best LAN performance from them. You know, no doubt that's one of the reasons why they ended up making the roster change. I mean, you know, Pana had his medical issues while he was over there. He was in hospital basically as soon as he got back to Australia. So,
I didn't know that.
yeah, no, it was pretty rough on him, honestly. So, yeah, was it that though, or was it, you know, the sort of the style of Apex that they played that maybe didn't work as well at LAN? Was it a bit of nerves because they were a very fresh team on that global stage? It's hard to say, honestly. I think it's probably a little bit of each.
Yeah, look, I mean, that is one of the things that I sort of touched on while you were away at the start, was that, like, I don't know that going into that event anyone necessarily expected, even despite the solid performance domestically, that they would be the best performer from the APAC South region. I mean, I can't talk for you. I don't know what you sort of said or what you expected going into that event, but for me, like, I always value a lot of experience, especially going and playing overseas. I think it's like a different step up. It's a different level from playing domestically. You tend not to get away with as much. So it normally takes teams a good 6 to 12 months to kind of find their feet and be able to perform, and then you know, be able to actually put some good results on the board over there. And I think that, you know, you've got a good example in Moist Esports of that kind of mentality where, you know, if we go back this time 12 months ago, did this team even exist 12 months ago? I can't recall exactly when it was formed, but like the first time they went overseas as Team Burger, they didn't perform as well as they did this time. Now though, you know, with that extra little bit of time under their belt, and the fact that obviously those guys had more reps in the previous year of ALGS, you know, they as individuals, and obviously, you know, Waltzy was on Sutoraiku and whatever. Now it feels like they've got like that 2 years of experience or so under their belt, or maybe not quite that much, but you know what I mean. And it's starting to sort of show the fruits of that labor.
They turn up to LAN, they know exactly what they're doing, right? I remember, I think that was actually one of the things that the IBG boys might have mentioned to me while I was over there, was just, yeah, how much tighter everything is. You know, how much more they needed to really lock in. Like, you know, walking to a balloon and someone's just like, you know, 5 seconds behind, they get picked off, right? Something like that. You know, there's just the pressure and the skill at LAN just really ramps up so much that you just have to be thinking about things that you don't necessarily have to think about when we're playing throughout a split, when you're just in, you know, your regional cocoon, because you don't get punished for those things. You know, you're not always running up against teams who can, you know, bully you in those kind of ways.
Yeah, so I just want to update everyone. I think unfortunately we've had another lobby reset, so we'll probably be another little while before we get into games. So it's unfortunate, but
what a start! What a start!
It is what it is. You know, this is day one, and this is how things do tend to go. Sometimes on day one, things tend to move a little bit slower, but we're getting through it. Just joining the next lobby, and you know, we'll be all right. We'll get there at some point. And we'll have some Apex for you guys to watch. So, what have we got to watch now? Why don't we go back to better times, you know? Take a look back at some of the good times, the Split 1 playoffs that were such a fantastic moment for APAC South.
Been a long time coming, and now they get that opportunity because in their own little bubbles they probably think that they're the best. Now they can prove it.
Welcome everybody to the caster's desk for the very first time. It's been a long time coming. I'm Fallout, joined alongside Vicky Kitty.
Waltzy to try and clutch it out 1-on-2, and I dare say that's going to be a difficult task with Azazel having purple armor. Frog's obviously getting time now to just reset. In fact, not even going to charge on forward. Waltzy trying to just play around, and he's now been able to put it into the 1-on-1. Maybe a big clutch for the team from APAC South. Waltzy still has the armor to play with. Pit's Flesh, was that on the down player? Was that on the player that he's fighting? I'm not too sure. Some cracks going through. Waltzy now has the advantage and clutches it out for Sutoraiku.
Run into it, and then try and Valcolt. Do they use the crypto spam to run distraction in the meantime? Look how far they go. That dome is deep. and they've got plenty of opportunity, looking to find some more. The Spitfire coming out again. Revan Esports don't care about your gold armor. Sit down.
Dewa in a great spot though, they're going to down them again. Bastion with the Peacekeeper coming out here from the high ground. Could they be the first team from APAC South here to find victory? This is the best opportunity for them to do so. Full armor, full HP, and a massive chance to convert, to find victory. They take out Onyx. It's only Yuki left, and he cannot stand in their way. APAC South, welcome to the ALGS playoffs.
They're gonna get shot in the back.
Yeah. They're right here.
Grenading now.
Try and put pressure on them. Yeah, good nade. Good nade. They're right here.
They're gonna EMP them.
EMP now. Don't go too deep here.
That's fine.
In the corner. Spin nade.
Burning.
Spin nade.
Mouse dead. Give me one. Give me dead.
Back in the air. Mouse dead.
Oh my
We're
fucking
just so much better, dude. Let's go.
That's so many fucking kills.
Can Burger somehow do this in a 2v3v3?
They lose out on MT here from Team Burgers, having to play as a duo. GMT has a lot of their attention split up as Team Unite now, moving on GMT 6.
One more. Try and get second.
Let's go, boy! The best team in APAC South for a reason. They've been so dominant, and even with a sub JMW from the UK, they are here to play.
I'm ready.
Stick it.
Popping. He's gonna go.
Now they're going to hang out behind the rock here. They got the mobile respawn beacon to play off. Optic Gaming is engaging with Luminosity. Reignite to go in for the third party and take this entire victory.
LG is out. Optic Gaming skill gauge goes out as well. Zero's going to do it. Wide left flank, and then just like that.
Put some respect in APAC South's name. Holy shit. The region that was made fun of the most. The region that was talked about saying they're the worst by far with the least experience. Taking home the land and taking home $250,000, Greek. We just witnessed history. History.
All right, welcome back once again to APAC South. This is ALGS, and we are on day 1. We have finished one game, but you know, trouble getting through to game 2. I think we're getting close to jumping in, and hopefully this time the lobby will not get reset. Third time might be the charm. I think that's the way that the phrase goes, isn't it?
Maybe. Have we been debated again? You never know. Yeah. Look, one game in. I think we've already seen a bit of a hint of what this next split is gonna look like, Elfish. I'm just thinking about like the balance cadence that we usually get after a season. At some point, you know, that usually there's some small changes that come through maybe after the start of the season. Will we see those during Split 1? Will we maybe see them after Split 1 going into the playoffs? Because of course you guys might have seen the news, the playoffs have been pushed back a little bit as well. So there will be, I think it's about 2 months, something like that, between the end of Split 1 and at the end of Split 2 and the Split 2 playoffs, which does actually give us time to, like, you know, maybe have another, you know, slightly bigger patch or something like that, where they can make some tweaks, you know, and potentially look at, yeah, you can see here, yeah, look at, you know, making changes to, you know, Seer, Catalyst, I think would probably be the ones that, you know, may need a little bit of a look at once we get to that Split 2 playoffs. And I was really hoping, by the way, because I think, you know, when we showed this graphic at the start of the year, Elfish, it was like a top X for Split 2, because of course, you know, we did have that system where if your region does well enough, you can actually increase the number or decrease depending on if you do badly, the number of spots you get going into the playoffs. And we didn't manage to do it this time. Obviously, we like Dark Zero, winning. Not that they count for NA anymore, but if they had have done that previously, that basically would have given us an extra spot. Like the amount of points that you get from coming first at LAN basically gives your region an extra slot. So we didn't quite make it there this time, even though we had a huge amount. What was it, like 4 out of our 5 teams made it through to the top 20 in LAN. Unfortunately, that was only enough to sort of maintain the 5 spots we have and not get any more. So yeah, it will still be playing for top 5. That's the sort of the magic number. When we get to that regional finals, you'll get the top 4 teams with points overall throughout this split going through, and then you'll have the one, the golden ticket kind of vibe going through as the winner of the regional final. That those 5 teams will be making it to LAN.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think it's super unreasonable to say that the slots should have stayed the same based on the results. Like, outside of Moist and Onic, there wasn't really anyone else that did perform super well, I didn't think. I mean, you can say obviously Daewoo didn't get to go and whatever, and then they're maybe one of the better teams based on the result, so that could have changed things a little bit. But then again, like there was that exact same conversation happening around Europe as well. Everyone was saying, oh yeah, don't really regard Europe's results because like half their good teams aren't here as well, or certain players aren't here and blah 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 and that kind of thing. So whatever, I think it's by the by. I definitely think that if the APAC South region wants to have more teams go over and represent, then yeah, they're going to need to do well at the event and prove.
I mean, that's one way to look at that, Elfish. I honestly think after this year we probably need to have a look at the system. If I'm being honest with you, because the fact that we can have all of our teams perform that well, and we're still not increasing our number of slots, like, to me that says because essentially we only have 5 teams contributing towards the amount of points, right? The other regions, the bigger regions, have 10 teams contributing. So, like the deck is kind of already stacked against us. And I think when we've proved that we're doing that well, our 6th place team, Dreamfire, comes in, they kill it as well, and there's not even their real roster. That kind of stuff is happening. Like, look, from my POV, I think North America definitely does deserve to have more slots. I think they are undoubtedly the strongest region right now. But I think we're definitely on par with, say, an APAC North or an EMEA.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's obviously the South America discussion as well, where there's 5 slots for APAC South, 5 slots for South America.
Yeah.
And the results from South America are clearly not the same as what you're getting from APAC South. And I think APAC South, if you make the argument, that they're on the level of Europe and APAC North. In fact, maybe I would even argue, I don't know, it's a bit of a bias thing in there, but I think they're a little bit better than APAC North just in terms of averages. But again, it's hard to make that statement because there's a lot more teams going overseas from APAC North. But the issue I would say with the system, that if you're going to say, okay, South America, for example, no one's going to argue South America should, in theory, have as many teams as APAC South based on results. But if you start taking the teams away, taking opportunities away from that region, then they go down to like, what, 2, 3 teams, something like that. And that continues to have a knock-on effect in terms of, okay, teams now are not as motivated in the region. They don't have as much to play for. They're not getting as much practice because now only 2 of their teams are going to go overseas, and therefore the region gets worse. And so it's like really hard. I think there has to be like, maybe you have to say like, okay, 5 is the base. And then maybe you can go to like 6 or 7, or whatever. Like, I'm just throwing numbers out here. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
But you get my point, right? That if you take too many slots away from a region, that region can just go, well, what's the point of playing now?
I totally agree with you. I think there should definitely be a floor that's probably around 3 or 4 teams for a region. I think considering South America's results so far, I'm not sure 5 is the right number for them. I feel like those slots probably could be used for genuinely competitive teams in some of the other regions. I mean, honestly, going off the results that we have had recently, I think if it was just me, if I'm like just promoting myself to commissioner of the ALGS right now, I would, I'm just doing it. You can't stop me. I think the slots that I would put in would probably be 12 for NA, 8 for North America. Sorry, 8 for EMEA, APAC North and APAC South, and 4 for South America. I think that would be my base, and then because I actually think the system right now, in terms of how you win and lose slots, is actually really good. I think it's actually quite fair, but only fair if you've sort of taken a good base level reading of where the other regions are at, and they've got the appropriate number of teams feeding points back into that system. And that's where I think one of the problems is at the moment, is that the 5 teams we have for APAC South are just not enough to be representing the true strength of the region.
Right. I mean, not to mention the fact that I don't think there has been an international event where all the APAC South reps that actually qualified did attend, if I'm not incorrect. I think there's always been at least one team that hasn't gone or has had some like two player changes or something. So basically it's not the same team anymore at that point. So yeah, there's that. So what was your base level? Like four teams minimum from the region, from any region?
Well, no, like the base would be like a starting point would be 12, 8, 8, 8, 4.
Right, but you would be willing to go below 4 for example, if South America continued to perform the way.
Yeah, look, I think 3 or 4 would probably be right for South America, honestly. Oh, hey, we got a game, guys! All right, podcast over.
Yeah, I like that podcast though, because I always like talking about those kinds of things. But I will make the argument that I think going below 4, you could significantly hurt the region in terms of. That's fair. Anyway, but that's a deeper discussion than what we have time for.
I think that's a genuinely fair point as well.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the game, because that's kind of what we're all here for. And I feel like we could have played a whole game, basically, in the time that it's taken to get into this one. But here we are, back onto World's Edge for Game 2. Now, just to update you or remind you, 505 won the last game. Onic and Moist both finished inside the top 3 as well in that game. And the other team to kind of give a quick shout out to there was Akuma. They picked up 11 kills in that game, and they're sitting in second overall for the overall placements. So I guess the teams to kind of keep an eye on heading into Game 2 are 505, Akuma, Moist, Onic, and Eternal Photon was the team that rounded out the top 5.
Yeah, interesting start from some of those. Akuma, probably not a name that you would be familiar with or had been thinking about quite as much. But yeah, Ironblood Gaming, obviously one that we have talked about a little bit, and where this ring is going. By the looks of it, you can see they're just getting that info now, with Jaro picking up the Catalyst, of course. She is that controller character, which again, man, confusing me with the input names there, but controller class, obviously the only one now. Those 4 heroes, I think it's Rampart, Caustic, Watson, and Catalyst, who can now scan the new ring consoles.
Yeah, interesting how that all plays out. I don't know that I noticed too much of it playing out in that last game, but maybe I'm just not looking hard enough. All right. Well, one thing to mention, a little bit of a change up in terms of the initial zone pool this time. I mean, we did have a very central zone pool at the start of Game 1. This time we're headed up towards the icier parts of the map. Epicenter seems to be close-ish to the epicenter. Fragment East, Fragment West as well, fairly central. So everyone's moving northward this time.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a climatizer zone. So teams up towards the north, you got Eternal, Photon, and Akuma, actually. There you go. Some of the teams did pretty well in Game 1. Definitely looking to pick up some split points here. I've already made their way in. Let's Go is there, and Onic is also pulling up. As we can see, IBG, they're coming over roundabout from Skyhook, so they will probably be there. I don't think they're going to get a particularly advantageous position, actually. I reckon they're probably going to be maybe 10th or something to make it into the zone, so they might have to play for, say, that north side of Climatizer or something like that, one of the buildings there, which seems to be in less often. It seems to definitely pull down to the south side a bit more often, I would say.
Alright, well, take the balloon here for Moist. Still got a ways to go, that's for sure. Golden Sage down a member. Don't have the banner, so no revive is going to be available, unfortunately.
Closed door over here.
Time to get it, but doesn't really look like they're going to be going for it, which is kind of the nature of the beast when you're in such a busy area of the map. And believe me, that is a busy area of the map. And just watching all of these teams rotate their way in. Here comes Moist as well, another team that has just found their way into Climatizer. So no real chance that if you lose a member here, you're going to be able to pick anyone up. This position that Moist found themselves in, though, is a position that we've actually seen a lot of teams playing in the past. If you jump up on that little back platform, generally your feet are kind of safe from teams that are far away from you. So it's actually not a bad spot to hold. And I've seen a lot of teams kind of not necessarily always win from there, but take a top placing from that position. So I'm kind of surprised that Moist is able to get in there as comfortably as they did. Looks like they are moving on, though, so they might have a bit of an idea as to where this zone is going, or that they want to take a bit of a better spot.
Yeah, well, they do actually end up going up top, and yeah, look, that's paying dividends already, with Popcorn having some trouble, courtesy of the scout there. Waltzy's certainly been playing a lot of that in this split, coming up to this season. So yeah, like, I mean, that position you were talking about down there, I think that was, would have been a very good one if you had Watson. It was nice and easy to just, you know, chuck a pylon up, make sure you're putting your walls up and everything around there. With Catalyst, I don't know, is it as good, right? You kind of want the buildings with Catalyst because of that reason we're seeing right there. You can reinforce the doors. It's a very, you know, very impactful passive that Catalyst has.
True, something to consider, that's for sure. We do see a lot of new things coming through this season that we have to bear in mind now. Bear in mind as well, Moist, you know, they're kind of just crushing everyone. There's another one for them. Pricey gets the knock onto Jaro. It's a little bit of a... I don't know if that's necessarily a revenge storyline. In fact, it'd probably have to be going the other way if it was going to be a revenge storyline. But I think in this case, Moist, you know, up against one of their former teammates, I mean, they don't really care who it is. They're just going to run through the lobby. It really does not matter to them. I think who's standing in front of them, they would pretty much consider themselves the best team in the region, and they're going to take every fight with confidence, and no surprises to see them working their way through this one pretty nicely. Iron Blood Gaming does go down, and Moist, they lost Empty. He's on the floor, but looks like he'll be picked up pretty alright.
Yeah, no one else is, you know, really challenging them for this position right now, so Moist, I think, are going to be fine. You know, Price is up there, making sure those doors are reinforced, and they've got a couple of death boxes to work with now, thanks to IBG going down. Golden Sage actually looking across at them from the other dome that's on the northern side of Climatizer, but yeah, for the moment, that's a good start for Moist.
Indeed. Same as the previous game, off to a good start, got themselves a nice position inside of the ring, and I'll be expecting to see them have a decent finish here as well. Now, one other thing that I've sort of noticed over the first two games here is, and it's good that we're talking about the map right here, Truth Esports just out on the edge again, just sort of playing the edge of the ring once more, so they're sort of out on their own little island, and not really a whole lot going on for them at the moment. Didn't really get to see how they finished off last game, but we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that roster, because I think that is a team that can do a bit of damage as well.
Yeah, Nutsuru Sama had fallen off a little bit, I think, in Split 1 compared to previous years where he's been, you know, one of the best players in the region. So I will be interested to see how they perform, certainly, in Split 2 here.
Indeed. Well, still taking a look at Climatizer here. And this is the northern side of Climatizer, where Buriram have kind of set themselves up. They were united in a little bit of a spot of bother here. Have actually lost a member to that setup from Buriram, but they've got the banner, and they're going to try and get their way out. Kisan's really getting booked here by a Nemesis. It's got gaps from range that's firing those shots off. They have gotten to relative safety for now. They were united, but I am not too sure how easy it's going to be for them to get the res. There is a respawn beacon inside of the next zone, but that is well and truly covered by Buriram, so I'm really not sure what the options are here for Daewoo United, unless they were to wrap around the ring and go towards Survey Camp, but in that case, they'd run into Truth.
It's a little bit tough, eh? I think they might actually have to go around sort of more northern, like around where Epicenter is, the rocks, and there's a little bit of terrain around there. I think they can play within the next ring, and with the information we had there, it looks like there was a chance that the ring was going to pull sort of north of Climatizer, which in that case would really help Dewa. But yeah, as you say, you know, they've only got the 2 members right now. Do they go back to the beacon that's outside the northern tunnels and try and res? I can almost guarantee you if they do that, that Truth Esports will be running at them like Usain Bolt.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't look like there's too much happening here for Dewa United. Everywhere they try to go, they run into a brick wall of some capacity. They did try to make that rotate down to Survey Beacon, a Survey Camp, I should say, to see if there was that respawn beacon, but unfortunately for them, it's not really going to be an option. Maybe best case scenario, they can sneak in on that northern side of the map and hope that Buriram gets contested in some way, shape, or form, but that also really doesn't look like it's going to happen right now. I'm just watching the minimap, and obviously the ring is starting to pull its way in at the moment, and so options are starting to become limited for Dewa United. We've been spending a lot of time talking about them, watching them, but I think it's with good reason, because now time might be starting to run out for them.
It's kind of how the battle royales work, isn't it? You're always on a clock. There's always something you've got to be thinking about, how you can make that next move. You can see they're actually pinging the inside respawn beacon here. Honestly, not a bad choice. I mean, Buriram, I think they're kind of looking for it. I'm not sure if Gopgaps has, you know, given them the info with the heartbeat sensor or anything like that. But no, okay, Dewa decided that's too risky. They're just going to try and rat it out a bit further north. And then looking over at Truth Esports, yeah, unfortunately, as you said, this is probably one of the less aggressive lobbies. So less people to be found on the outskirts. You know, if you're trying to be an edge team and trying to pick up those KP early on. So other teams like 20th Guaranteed, I'm not sure if they're necessarily doing this, or just because it's you know, their drop spot is a lot lower, and they knew they were with a hard north pull that they were just never going to get there anyway.
Well, this will be the ring pool where we do start to see things popping off a little bit more. Casuals here in the epicenter. I've got a few teams to worry about. ADL is just out to the west, MDY White to the south of epicenter. And it seems as though they've kind of pushed 505 away from epicenter. 505 more than happy to kind of move on, give that space to casuals and take a little bit of a better position inside of the next zone. And obviously that's now what casuals is kind of starting to think about doing. 20th Guaranteed. Just looking for the skyward dive, courtesy of Trent. They'll be getting out of there just in time. MDY White firing a few shots off. Have I spoken too soon? Doesn't look like it. It looks like they're relatively okay for now, but this is going to be a bit of a dodgy landing. If they choose a spot that is already contested, oh, they're in trouble. No. Rico goes down. There's a player standing right above them, and of course across the ways as well. Some third-party shots coming through as well. It's Moist that are diving on top of all these points.
Oh my god,
20th Guaranteed are a punching bag.
Easiest cleanup you've ever seen in your life. I like the wall as well. We didn't quite get time to go over that before, but I was looking at that position, I was being like, okay, probably better for Watson, but fantastic actually for a Catalyst wall if you ever need to wall yourself off for safety or take a fight in there. And as you can see, that's exactly what they do. You can also tell Moist have given up the dome position and gone back to that initial position down the bottom of that southern building as well. But yeah, 20th Guaranteed. Look, yeah, even the Gibby bubble couldn't save him. I think it might have been the Gibby that was actually put on the floor before he, you know, he barely got out of that skyward dive.
Yeah, pretty unfortunate in the end for them, but I think they were in a pretty rough spot. They kind of had to go for a bit of a YOLO play, something like that. X and Y. On the right here as well. No one has shields. They do manage to get some blues back on, but really a lot of teams headed in their direction. Let's Go is hearing the commotion, heading in this direction as well and looking for a fight themselves.
Yeah, they're
slow down a little bit.
On there. Focus of attention coming out from the Seer. They are going to use the wall to try and disengage though. See, Dark Veil goes out. X and Y trying to pull behind that. They really need to get some bats off, but that is enough to dissuade Let's Go. So well placed there. And LG are going to pull back, but they're going to run into 505.
Yeah, but I mean, the beauty of having a Catalyst is that you can put up this giant wall and at least obscure some vision. So it gives you something to play with for 30 seconds or so. X and Y looking a bit worse for wear here. Just down to YC, trying to get that bat off. Seems to be okay in doing so, but we'll move over to Let's Go, who have eliminated 505. So our winners from game 1 out of the picture pretty early on in the piece in game 2.
Yeah, you can see they're happy to just pull up and you know, go straight through that wall. Obviously, it does give you a bit of a stun, but if you know you have the, you know, an overwhelming advantage in the fight, you can just push through it and take the KP anyway. Hearing the Nemesis ring out as well, that's probably another thing that we haven't really talked about that much yet, Elfish, is it's a bit of a terror, this gun. Oh wow, okay, so there you go. So even though the, what was it, like Zone 3 did actually start pulling a little bit more north, yeah, that initial prediction of, you know, it does like to go down to that sort of southern side of Climatizer, and that is where we're seeing it. So, but yeah, going back onto the Nemesis there, I mean, this gun is so strong right now, you know, and even though the Vault has gone into the Crafter, which means you're not necessarily seeing as much energy ammo out there just because, you know, you can't pair it up with the SMG. Most people at the moment picking up the R99 with the buff to that. The car is now sort of, I think, a little bit secondary in terms of the SMG rankings. But yeah, the Nemesis honestly is pretty nuts. If you catch someone out in the open with it, you know, you can take them down in a couple of bursts.
Yeah, we did see Bururam using that a little bit earlier, and I think that was putting Daewoo in a bit of a spot, but we'll, yeah, keep touching on that as we go through. ADL Wolves right now have lost one member to Truth. Mosu does get that knock, so starts things off nicely in that engagement. It's a pretty important one actually for Truth because they're still trying to find a way into the zone. That's what Casuals is doing right now as well. They're going for the aerial route, and they've done a pretty decent job of landing right on top of a team. Oh, they didn't even know they were there, I don't think. That is not good. It's just YC from X and Y, I think, but done a lot of work there, and in the end it's going to be mutually assured destruction for both X and Y and Casuals. Maybe it was a couple of X and Y members, I don't know. Either way, both of them are gone, and Let's Go. Look at that pile of boxes. He wants the bat, can't get it. But either way, Let's Go. They'll be happy with the little part of the zone that they've now carved out for themselves.
Yeah, this another team that we are not as familiar with. We obviously haven't seen them, you know, in as much ALGS action before, but certainly they seem to be showing up and putting a lot of pressure on a region and the teams within it that are known for their team fighting ability.
Well, Let's Go is more than happy to just take a bit more of a relaxed approach now. They don't have anyone directly competing with them for positioning. MDY White is just around the southern side of this wall. Fate goes down as well. But it sort of feels like we're in the eye of the storm right now. Once this zone starts moving again, that's where the kill feed is going to start to pop off again.
Yeah, with the 11 teams we've got there, there'll be a couple that have to move out, the ones in the domes, but also those who have been playing southern positions as well. So you've got like MDY White and Let's Go down the bottom there. That's it. Even the teams like Moist, who are in the building right now, they're going to have to push into a different area of the building, and that could be tough for them as well, especially considering all the catalyst abilities they're going to have to wade through to get there.
Yeah, starting to get pretty busy in the old Climatizer at the moment. Daewoo United have managed to find their way to, I guess, a pretty good spot here. This is almost reminiscent of 505 in the last game in the sense that they're kind of the only team like positioned on their side of the zone. No one's really interested in being out there. It's obviously quite open territory, a bit no man's land if you're not inside of this little... What do you even call it? Are these caravans? I think I always call them caravans.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of different names for them. Caravans, crawlers, RVs, you know. Pick and choose whatever you like.
Pick your poison. Yeah, but I mean, if you're not in that, there isn't really a whole lot of cover around that area of the map, basically, was the TLDR. And so no one's really interested in kind of contesting them for that position, which might actually end up leading them toward something like a pretty easy top 3 if they are able to keep their heads down and no one sort of pushes in their direction, which I don't think is going to happen. Most teams now really focused in on Climatizer. Rotations have come through, and pretty much everyone is contesting that area of the map.
Yeah, I mean, those teams down from the bottom, the two that we mentioned, Let's Go and MDY White, both get crunched immediately from the teams. All of those teams, you can see they're sitting inside Southern Climatizer building. You can see Buriram are just trying to hold on to like the tiniest little bit of space they've got down the bottom here, but it's just Teddy alive now. And I don't know how long he's going to survive there, but hopefully he can rat out a couple more placement points. I'm sure that's what he's trying for. Actually, sorry, Buriram's fully alive. I was on, yeah, Golden Sage, which of course Teddy was on, the lone survivor down there. And as you said, you know, the RV out there, that's in a pretty good spot, but they've only got 2 members alive. Unfortunately, Bastion went down, and so Lahim and Kissan's left alone now. But luckily for them, I think all the teams coming out of the building in Climatizer are going to be too busy worrying about themselves. Moist make a preemptive move using the wall here, and I like this. They found a little bit of space here. And other teams are going to have, you know, their sight lines are blocked. I think this is a really good spot for Moist.
Yeah, Buriram down there in the lava, not having a great time on it, just firing some pot shots off at them, but content to leave them for now. With esports just at the back end of that Daewoo United Caravan are going to have a problem. It's inside the ring that have landed right on top of them. A 1-0 trade so far, but it gets brought back as Nelson goes back down inside the ring, just down to Nuku right here, and is eventually finished off. Daewoo United come in for the cleanup crew. Mosu's still alive somehow.
He's on top of the RV just by himself at the moment. He does have gold armor, so, you know, at least he can sort of quickly get the health and back up when he's taking damage. But yeah, now some people have started spotting him out. I think it's Onyx and Eternal Photon who are pushing in, as well as Moist, who want to go to the inside of the Caravan.
He just booked both the Daewoo United guys before he got taken down by Moist. He actually 2v1'd them. They were sitting in the Caravan shielding, and he just rocked up and said, hey, got a couple of extra points on the way out. I'll take that. Now, with that said, obviously Moist have rolled into a really solid position here. Thermite Nade does go out there to have connected too much, but there's the contest coming through. You already see one of the members down here. It's empty on the floor. Good shot, though, come through from Waltzy. Onyx finished off. Buriram down as well. It's the final 2, and it's Eternal Photon that will walk away with the win. In the end, they deny it from Moist. Perfectly timed, and they're happy with that.
And it was like the two teams barely even saw each other, right? I mean, you know, the walls were up. I think they had the Seer ults down. I didn't quite catch whether they managed to snipe the other Seer ult out, or if Moist even had that available, because of course that is the other extremely important thing that we really have to try and keep our eyes on this split, because it's why we're seeing so much Catalyst. It's why we're seeing so much Seer, because together that combination is just ridiculously good right now. If you can put up the wall and you can get your exhibit, your Seer ult into a safe spot where the other team can't shoot the diamond, because you've got to remember that's destructible, right? You can take that out and take that information away from the other team. If you get that down in a good spot, you're just in a ridiculously good position. It's you know, it's basically like a one-way smoke that you'd call it that, Elfish, right? Where one team can see the other team, right, with the Seer ult, and the other team is just kind of blindly spraying, and they hope they hit a bullet, and then you're like, oh, okay, I can see the ping of like the armor color there. All right, I'll spray in that position. And you're just in a horrible position if you manage to snipe out their Seer ult and you still have yours up and alive.
Yeah, well, good little finish there from Eternal Photon. They were, I think, 5th, or I mean, equal 5th with a couple of other teams going into that game. So that's going to jump them up quite substantially. Again, though, I mean, I will mention, obviously, Moist and Onyx having top placements. I'm not sure exactly what order they both got knocked out in. I mean, Moist was 2nd, Onyx might have been 4th or 3rd, something like that. But in any case, once again, back-to-back inside the top 5 is going to keep you quite high up in this lobby. The big quote-unquote losers out of that one, probably 505. We saw them get knocked out pretty early on in the piece. I think they took a 15th. So I would say it's going to be difficult for them to hold on to first place in this lobby after game 2, if that's the case.
Yeah. That said, you know, Onyx, another decent performance by then, them getting into the top couple once again. So they'll obviously be doing okay. Moist again had, you know, that was a top 5 or something finish for them, I think. So yeah, it's honestly been a couple of familiar names to us, managing to stay up the top during the first couple of games. And yeah, I guess we'll get some score updates at some point for you guys. We don't have them right now. Apologize for that. Just one of those things with every new season. When they change things around on us a little bit, and we'll try and get that up and working as soon as possible. But in the meantime, yeah, we'll just have to go off memory, I guess.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? Yeah, look, what else is there? I guess we've got one more game of World's Edge to sort of touch on. Then, you know, things change up a little bit, but I think that's relatively by the by. I'm not sure that really impacts too many of these teams at this point, right? I mean, it's no longer a talking point that Storm Point is the new map in the pool. It's been around for long enough now. I do, though, kind of get the sense, and, you know, watching these replays has kind of reminded me that, like, Moist is kind of just on another level in this lobby. Like, the confidence at which they play, the pushes that they make, I don't think you're really seeing any other teams play like that. And that's a scary Moist to be putting into day one of a split, because they're going to only get better as the split goes on.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember if you were there for that interview that we had with Waltzy last split, Elfish, and we were talking to him about their confidence, and obviously this was a point where, you know, Moist hadn't been doing quite as well. They were still close to the top, but, you know, they were a little off the pace. And they were saying that it sort of, you know, that pressure had gotten to them a little bit, honestly, and the expectations that the regions had gotten to them a little bit. But then when I talked to them at LAN, it was a completely different story. They were locked in, they were very happy with how they'd been playing, and, you know, they'd really gotten over those, I wouldn't say nerves, I guess, but, you know, gotten over, you know, sort of having that weight on their shoulders from being that go-to team in the region. And now that they are there, yeah, exactly, we're seeing the results of that, you know, a second in this game, and again, doing really well in the first game, and that's just consistent quality coming out of these guys that I don't think will stop, not in splits, not in regional finals, and not in LAN finals.
Yeah, so once again, actually, Onyx making their way inside of the top three, which is actually even better than what I had thought. I thought they finished in fourth. Buriram Truth to round out fourth and fifth. A little bit better from Daewoo United, though. They didn't have a very good game one, so good to see them bounce back pretty quickly for game number 2. I would almost make the argument that if they would have had an extra member there, then they might have even been able to push a little higher than 6th. But I think 6th from the position that they were in seems like a pretty good shout, and I think they got 1 or 2 kills in and around that caravan before they did go down. But they did just get caught off by that one rat play. But I think it was Mosu, right, from Truth that managed to get that one over the line. So something to keep an eye on later on. You know, at the end of today, if we get to the point where maybe Truth has an extra 1 or 2 points, then that could have been the difference maker potentially in getting some overall split points as well, which is obviously really important.
Yeah, a bit of a hero play there from Mosu. Yeah, as you said, you know, we're pretty used to Storm Point at this point. Honestly, I think most of the pros, it's actually their preferred map, Storm Point over World's Edge. So, you know, that's kind of interesting. I think we're already sort of starting to canvas where we go next. You know, do we move to a 3-map competitive map pool and start bringing in, you know, Broken Moon or World's Edge, or do we start, you know, shifting it around and keeping it fresh? Which I think, you know, honestly, it's one of those funny discussions, right, where it's like, you know, the casters and the audience probably think one way, and we're like, oh yeah, I'd love to see something new. But the players aren't necessarily on the same page because, you know, there's a lot of factors. Those maps have a lot of differences that mean the game plays out on a competitive level very differently on those other ones. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the ALGS as a whole decides to go in terms of maps.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think 2-2-2 could be pretty good. Get 3, 1 more, and we'll see how that goes. But anyway, that's a discussion for greater minds than mine. Time for us to take a short break. We'll have scores for you on the other side, so don't go too far away. We'll be back right after this.
Locked and loaded. Drop, shocked, and rocked. Say hello. Locked and loaded. Drop, shocked, and rocked. Say hello to the 4-0 first. Get ready for a world of hurt. Kill confirmed. Gonna add you to the list.
Hello, welcome back for ALGS. It's APAC South. It's time for game number 3. Hopefully we don't need another 3 resets, but seems like things are cracking on quite nicely. 2 games down, Genome. We got Moist at the top of the lobby, doing very well for themselves. I think we've got the scores to have a look at here, and you'll see just how well for themselves they are doing. It is starting to build a bit of a gap. 37 to 23 for Eternal Photon and Onic. So it's a bit of a jump.
Yeah, I mean that's big numbers after 2 games, right? You're averaging 18 points, 18.5 points a game. They're very, very solid numbers for Moist. I think the description you had before of basically them just being on another level to everybody in APAC South right now is kind of playing out. We'll see if it that translates over to Storm Point. The differences between those 2 maps, how the teams play them, which teams are good at which, is always something to keep an eye on as well. But yeah, look, Eternal Photon and had an okay sort of split last time, so the fact that they are up doing well is certainly a bit of an improvement for them. But then yeah, Onic also doing well, Dewa, bit of a retooled roster a little bit further down. Iron Blood Gaming obviously struggling so far. They were well down, I think they were in 19th or something, so a bit of a rough start to them so far. We saw them get taken out quite early there at Climatizer, just not quite working out the rotation that well, which is a little bit surprising, honestly.
Yeah, if you're running into Moist at that point in the game, I'm not sure that there's too much you can really do, but hopefully things will go better for them here in game 3 as we jump into our final game of World's Edge for the day. It is just the 1 lobby that we've actually got for you today, not 2. So next week we'll be back with 6 games from 1 lobby, 6 games from another lobby. Big day, but just for today, only the first 6 games for us to take a look at. But here we go into the last one on World's Edge, and another bit more of a central pool this time, although a little bit more of a northern pool than what we did actually see in the first game. So we're not expecting to see a Lava Siphon finish here, that's for sure.
No, certainly not. With the teams that have got that information already starting to work around. The fact that it's kind of centered on those sort of middle mountains there, Elfish, is definitely an interesting one. It could be one of the circles that sort of finishes sort of to the southwest of Construction. So like just sort of nestled in the northern edge of those mountains in the middle of the map there. But yeah, look, definitely an interesting one. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, indeed. Now, just as far as some quick updates, the Sharp Riser view may have noticed 57 players came into this game. Obviously, since the start of the day, Hermagerd and Fate have been playing a member down. But this time, 20th guaranteed, also down a player. I think Rico was having some issues.
Oh no,
he was unable
Gibraltar.
to get in. Yeah.
One Gibraltar we had in the lobby, Elfish.
Yeah, well, he is not here. He is not here for this game at least. Hopefully it'll be sorted out by the next one, because I know he was here earlier, so sort of keep an eye on that as we head back into Storm Point. But we're already starting to see a few shots getting exchanged around Fragment West, around Construction, where you mentioned, and in fact I think Moist might be heading in that direction shortly, but they've decided to head toward Harvester instead.
Yeah, well, Moist don't have the information, so they didn't get the ring console this time. So they're actually, I think they're maybe heading towards the one in Harvester. Sometimes they will do that if there's one in a neighboring POI, and it kind of makes sense to go there first. They'll just do that to give themselves the certainty about where that is happening. But 505 have come in there at exactly the same time.
Yeah, we'll take a look here at Construction already, because this is now 3 teams already taking up residence in that area of the map. You've got MDY White on the roof. Golden Sage hanging around on the 2nd top floor. And then inside the ring have joined the party as well. So a little bit of room still for maybe one more team on one more of those floors. But it is starting to get busy. It's kind of like trying to find an apartment here in Sydney when you're looking for a place to rent. You go there and there's about 50 people lined up for the viewing. So
oh, dude, don't. I'm literally doing that right now in Melbourne. It's gonna be hell.
Yep.
Just like it could be for these players here. And you know, I saw them pinging, you know, on the map, and I think they had some pretty similar deductions from me. Unfortunately, Onyx have already taken up the spot I believe they wanted to play, which is just a bit below construction. Sort of, you know, in the RVs that are down near those bins, just in front of the mountain, around the bridge that goes across the lava down there. But yeah, these teams that are in construction, I think, are going to certainly have a good spot for a couple of zones. But it's a weird building to play in, isn't it? Because you have direct access to all these other floors that the other teams are playing on. You also don't have, you know, it doesn't matter if Catalyst or not, you can't block the sides of that building, so people are going to have angles on you a lot of the time. It can be a tough place to play from.
Contact with enemy here.
Well, here's 505. Who are just sitting outside of Landslide, and they'll be aware that there is at least a team in there. It's actually Ironborn Gaming that's holding in Landslide. Popcorn is holding the train tunnel. So pretty busy around that area of the map as well. And you've also, in a sense, got to be potentially aware of ADL Wolves, who are now actually skyward diving in that direction as well. But they've got the info there's a team in Landslide, and so they've turned around and gone back to staging, which will at least relieve a little bit of that pressure in that area of the map. But definitely the western side of this next zone is going to be an interesting one, because there's a lot of choke points that teams are going to have to work their way through to get into phase 3.
Hermigerd going down to Dewa there.
Yeah, I mean, Hermigerd comes in as just a duo, so
yeah,
I don't know that you can expect too much.
Deck was stacked against him from the start, unfortunately, here in Game 3. You know, we were talking about, you know, can they improve on that 24th place from last season? I guess not that... I don't know, actually, because obviously you're not qualifying for Split 1 next year. I think it, you know, the how the invites go out for that is a little bit different to, you know, qualifying from Split 1 to Split 2. But either way, you know, you still want a good performance.
Yeah, definitely. Get some confidence heading into the end of the year. Either way, though, we'll turn back over toward construction. I just don't know that there's going to be a whole lot happening here, short of a few pot shots here and there. It sort of feels like a bit of an int right now if any of these teams were to try to take a fight against one another. Especially knowing that there's 3 teams there, and no doubt no shortage of teams that would be quite interested in a third party in that area of the map if they were to get the opportunity. So seems like there's this little gentleman's agreement from everyone in that tower to keep one another relatively unharassed.
For now.
And I mean, how easy is it really going to be able to challenge, or how easy is it going to really be to challenge when you have to try to, you know, get past all of this catalyst goo on your way to whatever floor you find yourself trying to contest? I just think it's not. You're not going to do it. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Would agree with you on that one. As you can see, Onyx seemed to have read the circle very well. As we predicted, holding down that position. Moist, interestingly, you can see one of them on the bottom of that map. They're actually down crafting in Lava Siphon right now, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I'd love to know what the thought process was there, because you know, are they saying there's only one playable position and it's the one that Onyx is in right now? You can't, you know, sort of share any others. And they've decided because of that, they're better off just sort of playing south and then coming up through the Harvester choke. It's, yeah, honestly a very interesting decision for a team who obviously likes to play from, you know, God spot as much as they can, as quickly as they can, and they were pretty close to being able to do it even after taking the detour to the Harvester ring console, but now they push back.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to take a guess, I think they probably would have felt like they're not really achieving a whole lot in the position that they were in. They were in that Harvester choke, and they were just sort of standing there. So maybe do something of value. Get a bit more in the backpack. Trent did go down in the meanwhile there. But again, this is a team that comes in as a duo. So I'm not sure that it's going to be a massive expectation for 20th guaranteed in this round in particular.
No, I mean, this was the team that we saw Golden Sage taking pot shots from construction. You know, is that a way they can try and get some extra points there, perhaps? Maybe just charge their arms up a little bit, but yeah, Leaf is going to be in a little bit of trouble now. Looking at some of the other buildings over here. Ooh, streamer building. Okay, this is Eternal Photon versus Akuma.
Yeah, indeed. And so far, so good for Eternal Photon. Just a little bit of damage there onto Limo that gets picked back on up. Courtesy of a bat. It's always one of the more awkward buildings to fight in, isn't it? There's just so many different angles that you can play. Jump up and down. Limo's very low. Crusader's dropped as well, so this has gone from bad to worse, unfortunately, for Akuma. Eternal Photon, it's a 2v1 for them to play with right now. They're trying to just delay for a little bit because Holiday is low. Contest does come through. The res was on. But it's still not, unfortunately, gone the way of Eternal Photon. Holiday's going to have to be quick to get back up onto that roof to save the day. I'm not sure, though, that he's got the mobility to do it. And so this actually could be Akuma now coming back into the swing of things. They've managed to get, I believe, all 3 revives. No, they haven't got any, actually. It doesn't matter, though, because Eternal Photon all out of the picture. And so Limo and Crusader will both get picked up by ALGS. There's no third party coming on through. No one even close.
There's no third party. There was, however, Anavrin from Let's Go, who actually ducked into the building by himself during that fight, and then went out again. And I'm not sure.
Have a little look.
I don't know if there were banners in the building or something, or if he was just trying to get some loot. But it was maybe even just trying to get some free KP because he was the last one alive. Didn't feel like ratting out the rest of the game. Don't know. Anyway, it was a wild little incursion there. But yeah, as you said, Akuma definitely coming out on top there. You've got Crusader, he's been around for a little while now on the controller. You've got Limo, who I've actually seen him around more in terms of his feats in pubs and that kind of thing. He's I sort of know him more as a streamer who goes for records, trying to get the fastest to 20 kills, all that kind of thing. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well he performs in the Pro League.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did have a little bit of a run with RTL recently, so it's not as if, this is his first rodeo per se. He'll be able to give it a crack with that experience under the back pocket. But yeah, I mean, it seems to be going okay for Akuma. They had a good game 1. Not sure that their game 2 was quite as up to scratch, but game 3 so far certainly looking alright as well. And we'll see if they can get it over the line. Now, just a bit of a Moist update, because I know there's a lot of Moist fans. They still just playing Edge. They've ended up more or less exactly where they were. They were kind of holding in that choke point just coming out of Harvester earlier on, and they went back down to Craft as you mentioned, and now they're kind of coming back in through that direction anyway. So just trying to, I guess, use their time a little bit more efficiently than kind of standing there and holding the choke and wasting all of their resources for no reason. If they must have felt that the southern side of the zone was relatively uncontested, so.
I mean, I'm surprised that, they're going through the zone right now, actually. They've only got 2 blue armors. I'm surprised after all that crafting that they're not slightly better equipped than that. I guess it was maybe only the 1 or 2 crafting options that they had. Casuals, of course. I hope they're watching their backs, because that's where Moist is about to appear.
Yeah, Sway is turning around every now and then. But if he gets the timing wrong, or if Moist gets the timing right, he's been spotted. Yeah, they've been spotted. But Sway is really under pressure right now. You can see the missile swarm coming in on top of him. He is not able to get a bat off at all. It ends up being a 1-for-1 trade, though. Waltzy drops in response. So Casual's holding quite nicely. Wall up here to provide just a little bit of cover for both teams.
And the longer they keep them there, the more their health beds are going to go down, right? You can see, obviously, full health. They haven't cracked through the shields of the other 2 members of Casuals yet. But Moist Esports are taking damage for every single second they sit in here. Pricey and MT now kind of low. They have to be a little bit worried about these Catalyst walls as well.
Yeah, shots starting to come through, though. Pricey Looking to finish off the knock on to Sway, if nothing else. Popping himself a shield battery as well, and gets it off really just in time. Flanked as well, but Waltzy's there, back on his feet, gets the better of Sway, or finishes off Sway. I guess it's just the bleed out. He's not back on his feet. I'm lying. And I don't even know if Waltzy's going to get picked back up. I think he might bleed out at this point. Zaki has gone down. Fight does continue to persist. It's a long one here. Neither team really happy with the way that this fight is playing out. It's I guess, kind of felt a bit more like a war of attrition. And only now does it start to dissipate. But yeah, Waltzy does get picked back on up. And I think that's just a testament to the strength of this team. That somehow they can go from that position and get away with that and still have 3 players alive.
Incredible, you know, picking Waltzy up right at the last moment. As you can see, the zone was closing in on them as that was happening. Thrice from Casuals did actually manage to get away. They were on about, I don't know, 5 health, I think, as they ran away. A single bullet probably would have finished them off there. But Moist, as you can see, obviously were a little bit more focused on just making sure they stayed alive and stayed as a 3, probably more important than the 1 KP for the moment.
Maybe a little bit too touch and go for what Moist would be happy with, but either way, they're through it. Now, though, they're going to have to deal potentially with Daywa United, who's on the northern side of that highway, just inside of Fragment East. And they're looking pretty well stocked. They've got 2 sets of reds and a potential gold, if they wanted it. ADL Wolves down on the other side of the map. Down toward the south, being gate-kept a little bit here by Truth. I wonder if they've got a Skyward Dive available. ADL Wolves are at 87% of the Skyward Dive. I don't think they're getting it off, though, even if it does manage to charge. They're going to have to win this fight.
Alright, well, that's the stakes, I guess.
95%.
In this tiny little corner, with Truth coming around, the big bad wolf, they've even got the smoke canister on top of them there. With Noel saying he's actually got the Digi threat as well. So yeah, maybe even a couple of them have got those Digi threats ready to go. Maybe they've been past one of those new assault bins.
What's the choice here for ADL Wolves? Well, now that they've lost a member, I think they pretty much do have to commit to this. Not sure that the res is going to be coming through. You can see your XP is trying to push his way forward. Heck as well. But they're not able to finish off that engagement. They were really in a very, very rough spot there. And it's actually quite impressive that they've managed to get 2 knocks, I'll be honest. Truth, though, get through it okay.
But now what do? The round's closing. This ring is going to do so much damage. Mosu does realize he can't even stay for the final res. He has to try and make it out of the choke before this ring closes. Now, they are actually pretty close to the second ring, which means, you know, it won't close that quickly on them. But as you can see, they're so low on health. They're going to need some of this smoke to play behind.
I don't think anyone's really looking in their direction at the moment, at the very least, so they do have a little bit of breathing room. It's up towards the northern side of the map where things are really starting to pop off. You do have IBG pushing their way in toward MDY, and obviously Golden Sage as well starting to push their way out. So this is kind of a 3-way engagement as to be expected in that area of the map. It was always going to be busy. Golden Sage doing okay for themselves right now, and ArcStars going out as well are going to be a problem for whoever's on the receiving end of those. No connections. But it gives it a bit of time for the medkit. Golden Sage can find that reset that they're looking for. Crypto Drone going out. EMP now down as well. And IBG definitely looking worse for wear, down to just Jarrow, who's trying to keep his head down and let this fight happen all over the top of him. It won't matter. Jarrow goes down. IBG out of the picture. And now it is Golden Sage against MDY White. The good shots come through there from the EVA 8. MDY White don't last very long. Golden Sage walks away from the construction with a big win.
But Onyx have finally decided to make their move. They don't need to stay in their spot any longer. They can start taking advantage of some of the chaos around them. The scout shots ring down from up on the highway. They got any of the downs there, actually. And Moist, who are looking also to try and make something happen here, they're going to take out inside the ring. And that just leaves us with 4 squads. So we've got Onyx. They're looking pretty good here up on top of on top of the highway. Moist, they're trying to get the res off here in the train car. You've got Golden Sage, who are taking a lot of damage, actually, from Onyx here. They've got to find a way to exfiltrate themselves from that situation. And then you've got the duo of Truth Esports, who, after all that nonsense going on with ADL down the bottom, they're actually going to be in an okay spot down the bottom. But if they show too much presence, they might have a little bit of a worry from Onyx on their west.
Yeah, I don't reckon they're trying to draw too much attention to themselves. They know that they're a duo. Raki with the Nemesis. Oh my god. He has just beamed Mobius and Teddy. And look, you were talking about it in the last game, but there is an example of it. I don't know that we caught that on stream, but they went down like a sack of bricks. And, well, Golden Sage now trying to desperately find those revives, but it's actually opened the door up a little bit for Moist in particular. Pricey is starting to come across to try to find some of those kills. Waltzy having been dropped, though, might give a little bit of a second thought, and Moist will reset. So, in fact, somehow Golden Sage might get out of this with 3 players alive.
That would be a pretty incredible feat, honestly. Well, actually, no, it looks like Teddy's gone down. So now that Moist are pushing on them, I'd say it's pretty unlikely for them. Yeah, look, I think this game could end up as a Moist v Onyx got a situation, or at least that is going to decide it, I would have thought, with Truth Esports. They're currently trying to get a res on the other side of the map. Onyx looking, trying to work out where they've gone. Raki needs to get that heartbeat sensor online right now. They're actually using and committing the wall just to make sure this happens. And there we go, just a couple of PK shots coming out from Raki to make sure that they do get those kills and do secure the top 2. So now, it's a 3v3 going into this, but Onyx are coming into it a little bit worse for wear.
Yeah, nice little armor swaps though come through from Onyx. That's what's kept them alive until now. Raki though having dropped. Pricey had some really good cross shots on Onyx when they were finishing off Truth, and that has really helped Moist out. They've capitalized on top of that. They've done a really good job on the timing. Finally, Moist is going to be able to find the win that they've been looking for all day long. It's been a long time coming. They've had 3 back-to-back top 3s. In fact, I think 3 back-to-back top 2s, and now as well a first on top of that. That said, you got to be happy if you're Onyx there as well. I mean, I think if I'm being honest, they probably will be a bit disappointed to see that game go by the wayside, given that they had Godspot for pretty much the whole time. But again, you know, it's like another top 3 in a row for Onyx as well. So job's kind of being done by them, just a little bit outplayed by Moist. But I didn't really mind the play that Onyx made. I think they made the correct call to try to deal with Truth there. They knew that if anyone was going to get third-partied by Truth, it probably was them. They did actually finish Truth off really quickly, but what I want to say there is that while they were looting, the smoke was up, but Pricey just somehow had this angle, and he really almost actually got a knock while they were looting in the smoke, and I think that's kind of what put that little bit of extra pressure on top of them that Moist was able to capitalize on. If those shots don't connect and they're like full HP and full shields, maybe they have a bit of a better chance in that fight against Moist. But, you know, once that fight did eventuate, you could see it was like always on the back foot for Onyx, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was by that point. But it was an interesting decision to take out Truth first. I mean, if they were aware, which I would imagine they would have been, that Truth were a duo at that point, they've got 1 knock onto them. There's only 1 player left alive for Truth. It's going to take them at least another 10-15 seconds to, you know, fully heal up and be at a point where they can actually challenge Onyx more. You know, at that point, the Onyx just full send it at Moist and be like, you know, because obviously they were going for the guaranteed second play. Yeah, but do they just full send it at Moist and try and say like, okay, let's just try and take this 3v3. We know they're a duo after. Chances are we'll just be able to get, you know, shield swaps and take them on then. So it's a really hard one to weigh up.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, I think it's easy for us to sit here in the moment and say, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that. But, you know, when they're playing, they have less than 5 seconds to make that decision. And you have to communicate that to 3 members and execute it as well. I think they executed it about as well as they could have. They knew that they really had Truth under pressure there as well, because they were getting all of the damage from the catalyst sort of ticking through. Every now and then. So they knew that they were probably going to be able to knock them over pretty quickly. And I think that's why they made that decision. Rather than sort of letting them back up, let that boot off the neck. But, yeah, either way, second place is definitely not a bad shout. And if the second place is to Moist, then, you it's about as good as you could expect in a lobby like this. So I think Onic and Moist have probably both done enough there on the first map for me to say they'll be walking away with the top 2 spot out of this lobby.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it, doesn't it? And certainly the 2 teams who performed well at LAN, I think they were actually, were they 6th and 7th at LAN, like right behind each other? Yeah, even on the world stage, as we have a look at the placement timeline. And yeah, with the first there in the 3rd game, World's Edge does belong to Moist. I mean, they've absolutely dominated the competition here on our first map, and I'm genuinely fascinated to see if they can back that up on Stormpoint. And I kind of don't see why, they can't. I mean, sure, Lava Siphon is probably the best POI in the game across either of the maps. It definitely does give them a little bit of a boost. But yeah, look, let's see just how far ahead of everyone else Moist are right now.
I suspect it is quite a ways. 20 points over Onic, and Onic in themselves are 14 points above 3rd. So, like we said, I mean, they're quite solidly in the top 2 position. I mean, yeah, there is some moving and shaking that could still be done. A couple of teams maybe still in a position to catch them. Onic more so rather than Moist, you'd say at this point, but if Eternal Photon, Truth, or Akuma maybe have a good start to Stormpoint, then they could potentially still nab a 2nd place. But look, Onic has been... I've really enjoyed what I've seen from Onic today. I think that they've been quite intelligent with their rotations. They've been quite fast with where they've been able to contest early on in the piece, and a lot of the time their initial reads, their very first rotation has been basically to God spot, and if not to God spot, basically to a position that's going to get them a top 5 really comfortably. So they've been really on point with the reads as to where the zones are going to be going, and that's obviously been of great benefit to them.
Yeah, it's kind of been this coming of age story, really, with Onic, getting to finally play their first LAN after being at a fairly high level for a long time during the ALGS scene and finally cracking into that global stage. So it's fantastic to see that they've come back with some confidence, and certainly, they're playing well from that. IBG, though, we talked about that roster swap at the start of today, and they still, have not made any headway really here on World's Edge. So once again, going over to Stormpoint, will that be a different story for them? Some of the other teams we saw there as well. I think for the first time we've got a full Filipino team in Fate. And unfortunately for them, been a little bit of a rough start. So, just trying to still acclimatize themselves to this new higher level of play that they're going to be seeing during Pro League. Yeah,
I mean, that's always going to take, like I said, a couple of seasons when you make the jump from one level to another. It's the same conversation we were having about teams coming from APAC South to playing internationally. It's that exact same kind of time that you need. But either way, we need a bit of time as well. It's time for us to go to a short break. But on the other side of this, we'll be jumping onto Stormpoint.
favorite part, the screaming. I plan on getting under your skin.
I'll break your heart, and then I'll break everything else.
Hello and welcome back to ALGS. It's APAC South. We're into game number 4. That means it's Storm Point time, and I think we are ready to jump into game as well. Genome, it is underway, so we better get cracking on into that one as soon as possible. So far, so good for Moist as they top the lobby at the moment, but we'll see whether or not maybe anyone's going to be able to catch them. Onic, probably the team to do it. If anybody, would need to have a good start to Storm Point here, and kind of also hope that Moist falls off the ladder a little bit.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned before, you know, they had a little bit of a slow start to last split, and that's what kind of caught up with them in the end, and they were forced to have that incredible performance in the regional finals to make their way through to the global stage, where it kind of all worked out for them. But here, it's looking good for them to have a 25-point start, getting that first place in this series, and put that on the resume. As you can see, we've had a ring scan already on the old ring console, and ooh, interestingly, where is that one gonna go? So it can't go to the Cascade, the actual, you know, waterfall, Cascade Falls. Does it end up somewhere inside Checkpoint? Oh, don't know. I feel like this one is probably a little bit more likely. I want to say south of Cascade Falls, but this is genuinely quite a hard one to read.
I guess we'll give you another little ring pull before we lock it in. But maybe a good idea would be to just see where Onic is going, because they've been really good with their calls so far today, and they have gone just south of Cascade Falls into one of the oranges there. So that is, you know, maybe something that you can take a little bit of info from. But they're actually continuing. They haven't stopped. They're still moving their way, and they're going to run into Hermagod. This is going to be an early fight happening in a potentially very crucial area of the map.
Yeah, which is interesting, because, like, will they realize quickly enough that it's just a duo? And, you know, because if they do, surely they're just going to pull up on them. You can see Hermagod obviously playing very hesitantly there, running away immediately, and now Onic are like, okay, whatever, they're, you know, not a problem for us, we're just going to go for our preferred position. With Moist, they've stayed around to, you know, maybe they were just crafting up a little bit, they didn't have the ring console this time, so they are now looking directly at Onic. Ooh, could be a bit of an early one, well, you know, first versus second scuffle here.
I would be surprised to see it. Moist have just gone back into Cascade Falls and aren't looking to really push the issue here. So Onic are going to be okay for now. Just chilling up on this high ground above that set of buildings. You've got inside the ring in one of them and Ironblood Gaming in another. So quite the congregation just out to the western side of Cascade Falls. Maybe gives us a little bit of a clue again as to where this zone could potentially end up. It's one of those areas of the map that I find can be quite difficult to play, because there's a lot of rotations kind of converging into one spot. And so if you're in there, it can very quickly get quite busy here for someone like Ironblood Gaming. They need to be quite careful.
Always got to be careful when there's this many heavy hitters around. A lot of those teams, you know, from those central positions in the map pulling up. A lot actually pulling into the western side of Cascade Falls. You know, usually if you're a Cascade Falls team, one of them will drop over there, grab a bit of loot, come through, do the spiders, and then end up in sort of Cascade Falls proper. But yeah, those couple of sort of buildings and whatnot over there, definitely housing some decent teams. You've got IBG, you've got Inside the Ring, and then you've also got Buriram United as well.
I'm just keeping an eye on a couple of those teams still coming in from the northern side of the map. Eternal Photon, definitely a bit of a talking point today, as well as Akuma. So two teams that need a decent start, I think, to Storm Point to really solidify the position that they're in. Might actually run into one another relatively early on in the piece. Popcorn have set up pretty nicely as well.
We can scan this area.
Looks like they're going to have to do too much moving until a little bit later on. Some shots do come through from Homagur, the duo. But as we know, Cascade Falls, it's got a lot of buildings. You've got a lot of room here, a lot of space for a bunch of teams. And already 4 teams setting themselves up in Cascade Falls. And I expect we'll probably see 1 or 2 more once those teams from the south or from the north rotate their way in.
Yeah, over towards Bean here, where X and Y are going up against 505. Horizon action as well, with V on 505 picking up that. As well as X and Y actually, so could see black holes from both the teams coming out here, potentially. Not sure if either of them have done the IMC yet, but interestingly, why are X and Y not taking this? Do they maybe feel they don't have a good position to do it, especially after, after the start of that fight? But as you can see here, more fights going on around the map. This one's over at Launchpad, where we've got MDY White going against Casuals.
Yeah, Rico's also just hanging around here as well. He's trying to get away from Casuals. That's who they're actually chasing right now. They've completely disregarded MDY White, who let them go, basically. So poor old Rico doesn't get to play the last game because of some issues, and then gets knocked out in 20th in this game. So 20th guaranteed do live up to their name in this particular instance. Oh, Mingyu!
Oh no, they got him! They got the Valk!
Yeah, they got him, and they're falling back to earth. And that's going to be the end of Casuals. It's just Rice left alive. Won't last long. MDY White, great stuff. Beam Mail Sky. And that's worked out really well. And Casuals, I guess they get a little bit of a comeuppance for chasing the solo instead of dealing with the trio.
And it was a risky Valk ult there from Casuals. And I feel like we're seeing that more and more, honestly. One of the funniest things I actually took away from watching Charlie's Moist Critical's recap of watching his team at LAN was how worried he got every single time they popped a Valk ult. And it made me sit there and think of it like, it really has changed. All the nerfs that have come through towards the Skyward Dive for Valkyrie have really changed how easy it is to take people out, and how risky it is if you're popping them, especially in the zone like that where you're taking extra flesh damage and stuff at the same time. So it's really not as guaranteed of a movement tool as it used to be.
Yeah. That might be part of the reason why we're not seeing as much Valkyrie. But another engagement happening out here over by the mill. X and Y up against 505, and it started well for X and Y. Gotten that knock onto a couple of the members of 505 now. It's just Mexus left alive. Forgotten is completely finished off. And V bleeding out, but Mexus inside of the zone, so not going to be having a very fun time of things here. It's actually given X and Y the time to reset and get the revive, bring it back to 3 members. They can force the 3-on-1. I dare say at this point, Mexus is really just hoping to try to survive. Has dropped the Bangalore ultimate just to try to provide some space, but yeah, look, best case scenario for Mexus here, X and Y are happy with those 2 kills, and they decide, you know what, we don't have the meds to stay in the zone too much longer, we're just going to get out of here.
Time to go. Can Mexus even get those banners? Obviously, yeah, you can see he's really struggling as far as the meds go, with X and Y on the back of him.
They see him, surely.
He's not cooking, he's cooked.
He is not cooking. He's being cooked. YC is on the chase, but Mexus is pretty quick. He's zooming along.
He is. Well, he's got the bullet time passive, right? Of course, after taking those last couple of shots.
There it goes again.
And oh yeah, he's still got. I was about to say he's still got a couple of smoke canisters in the chamber, ready to go. Pops them on different sides just to try and confuse it a little bit.
Akuma's looking for him though. They've turned around. They're just a little bit further ahead of Mexus. He's kind of gotten past them.
Orc Chan saw him, and as soon as he tries to get that cell off, oh, still alive somehow. Oh man, this is like a horror game right now for Mexus. He's just got there's people on every side of him trying to hunt him down.
7 seconds on the smoke. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to get another one off here. Surely has to be going down in just a second. The only reason he's still alive is because he's got that gold armor. Nice fancy footwork from him. Bullet time passive again. Smoke up in the sky. And he's using bushes for cover, alright? This is where we're at now, okay? if you're ever using bushes as cover in Apex Legends, you know something has gone wrong. And unfortunately for Mexus, something did go very wrong. He's finished off. X and Y will turn around and go back the way they came. Not interested in taking the fight against Akuma, so Akuma get the spoils of war.
Yeah, well, I see. Lucky he manages to get out and doesn't catch too many stray bullets from Akuma either. So those teams will be heading back towards the ring and back towards pretty much everyone else who is sitting within the Cascade Fall buildings within that ecosystem at the moment. Still actually a couple of buildings that are up for grabs. I don't know if Dewa are, you know, doing a sort of split hold or something like that. As we're seeing MDY go up against LG here on the eastern side of the map.
Yeah, already that initial knock. And Feiju wants to capitalize on top of that. Artstar to try to break the door down, but they're going to take an alternate route. And shots through the window will not connect. Mingyu going to take the opportunity to pop a medkit here, and LG will try to survive as long as possible. Maybe there's an angle here for a quick res. I'm not sure they're going to be so bold as to look for that, but they'll just try to find it. And that's going to be the go signal for MDYY. They knew that that was not an option that they should allow, and they punish. Let's go down.
Ooh.
No res available.
Yeah, the duo of fate, the Filipino team we were talking about earlier, though, have come in from the zone, and a couple of well-placed arc stars could potentially spell some doom here from MDYY. Mingyue just gets a syringe off before he goes down to zone. He feels like he can't really move out of the building right now because he's that low on flesh health there, and so LQ Dud is going to have to come back. It's going to be a 2v2.
Good shots in there from Ingwe to start the engagement, but you're going up against some red shields and really starting to get low on the side of MDYY. Now, they've gotten themselves at least one good knock onto my end too. So that brings it back to the 2-on-1. 23 ticks to try to clutch this one out, or potentially to just escape. It looks like the latter will be the option that is taken, so MDYY get out of there relatively okay in the end. They've got the banner. They've got Feiju's banner. I'm not sure they're going to be able to find a revive here. Maybe if they go back out into the zone, but then they'd actually run into 23-6. He's playing behind them.
Yeah, Moby Res isn't in the crafting rotation at the moment by the looks of it either, so that's not... Oh, actually, no, by the looks of it, on the screen, yeah, they do have some res beacons. So if they can find a spot to pull those off, they might be fine. Will they run into 23 ticks just below them? Very, very possible.
I would say if they're going to do it, they're going to have to do it pretty soon, because they're on actually a little bit more of a quieter side of the zone. If they start to push their way in, it's going to get real busy. Just like what we're seeing up on the northern side of the map right now, ADL is chasing Golden Sage. They've already found themselves a knock onto Teddy. There's another one onto Phoenix. Moist helping out in that department, and so it'll be just Mobius left alive for the team that is trying to escape. ADL Wolves don't look like they want to chase too hard. They're not exactly sure where Mobius is, but if they do get a sniff, if they do spot him out... Yeah, he's been spotted now as well, because third-party shots are coming in.
Exactly, he's taking bullets from the southern side of him, so they'll see that and recognize what that means, and there we go. They do find him out and get the final kill. Meanwhile, over here in the cave, we've actually got 3 teams. Iron Blood Game trying to hold people out here as Eternal Photon push in towards Akuma.
Yeah, Crusaders on the floor, but Limo and Orkchan are fighting hard, and Eternal Photon do go down. I don't know if that's out of the frying pan and into the fire, though, because Iron Blood Gaming are lurking. Luckily, maybe for Akuma, IBG did lose player K. And so Jarrow and Panna are not actually as confident to try to take a fight right now as what they otherwise might have been. Had they had 3 members, it could have been a perfect third-party opportunity into the cave, but instead, they will just back away.
Well, if they had committed, they might have been okay there, Elfish, because I think once they were inside the cave, honestly, they probably could have, dealt with Akuma, who were kind of struggling at the end of that fight, but they left their building open, and Kilmate from inside the ring went over and took that out. He was the one who got the angles and turned IBG into a duo. You can see now Moist trying to take even more space. They've They've recognized that Hermagerd were a duo sitting in that building, and they push through the Watson fences and take out the Wraith-Watson combo there. They've basically got Cascade Falls all to themselves now, because the ring has shifted over to where inside the ring are, to where Buriram were, to where IBG were holding a fantastic position before they gave it up.
Yeah, but with that said, obviously Moist isn't going to be able to stay there for too long. They're going to have to move on in just a second. MDY White might be meeting their makers in just a second. MDY White out of the picture. But Daewoo United not looking too much better. Just Lahim. Can he find that res? Looks like it's going to be possible. I mean, it's a quiet side of the zone, so they should just be able to get that one okay. We're back. Fight as soon as possible. And IBG, well, they're out of the fight.
On completely, yep. A couple of teams there. I think that might have been Onyx as well as Popcorn over the side, combining to get rid of them. So as you can see there, Buriram pretty much in God spot right now. Daewoo, they were the ones split holding buildings towards the southern edge of Cascade Falls. It's going to be a late rotation in there. MT looking behind him with the heartbeat sensor, doesn't spot Daewoo out in time, or they might have potentially stuck around there and tried to deal with that duo. They're actually going to Valkyrie into the circle right now. Meanwhile, XMY are trying to deal with Kuma. There's a lot of interest in these buildings over towards the western side of Cascade Falls.
Yeah, I mean, as expected, it's where so many points of the rotation do end up meeting, so you're going to have a lot of teams rotating their way through there. It's only natural that they'll come into an engagement against one another. But for now, it seems like both teams are able to hold okay. You've got Akuma kind of on the roofs, X and Y inside.
Moist.
And yeah, Moist also on the roof over the top of Buriram. So this is a completely different building. But actually, I kind of like Moist's position on that roof. There's nice sort of hard cover behind them. The big cliff means that they really only have to focus on one angle, and they've got nice little pockets on that roof to play around.
Yeah, I think they're going to be okay during this circle. When the circle starts to close, that's going to, when it'll start being a little hairy for them. Daewoo will start popping around from the side of the corner. Their Valk's going to go, is gone, so they'll just have to walk into the ring towards where Moist and Buriram are currently sitting. Maybe they can find a spot underneath that building potentially. And then you've got ADL up the top as well, who will have to push in there. A couple of the other teams, Onyx, they're currently sitting on top of Popcorn on the waterfall down to the south. So both those teams are probably going to look to Valkyrie in towards the circle as well.
Oh, shots starting to come through from X and Y, and they're also receiving a lot of those. Quite low for one or two of those members, but let's have a feel for Akuma. They're actually, they were sitting pretty until Orkchan just got beamed through that smoke, and that's not ideal at all. Akuma now suffering the brunt of this engagement. Arcstars are just going to keep a couple of those members at bay. You've got some ticks still coming through from Akuma, but they are going to lose Orkchan, that's for sure. And you'd say Akuma are probably going to be out of the picture here in just a second. Limo somehow surviving. Still.
Okay,
But eventually he's gone.
They don't make it out from there. Sujo now from the eastern side of the ring there. ADL Wolves finally moving in. Moist still looking good on top of the building. Onyx, I said they might have the Valkyrie, but no, of course they have switched over to Bang, as we will see a couple teams do when they move from World's Edge to Storm Point. So they're walking in, but they're fine at the moment. But there's a lot of teams over on that the building on the western side.
Well, Moist in a very good position to potentially close this game out. Let's jump into a Moist listen-in and see what they are saying as they go through this game.
Team here, hold up a team.
Resing.
I don't think we can stop it. There's up it.
Can I get it? Climbing, maybe?
Finish!
Nice. I can wall. Can we get their door control? I can wall that through their door and we can just kill them.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
This team is here right now.
Can. Wait, they broke the door under you, Walty.
This team is looking still.
Right.
They're gonna third us if we actually fight.
Maybe we just play the heads. Maybe we just play the heads then. I don't know.
Yeah. They're picking up on the headies. I think, I don't know. Kind of just want to kill them so we get inside to ourselves.
And can we without getting insta-thirded?
No, not really.
I need heavy. Anyone got heavy?
I don't heavy, no heavy, no heavy. These guys aren't in for too long, okay?
If you get a scan, I might be able to knock one.
Look here, look here, look here, look here! Look at my ping, look at my ping!
They walled it. Can we fight the duo? Fight the duo!
Yes, 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 yes. Nading.
I'm going back,
I got back up, Rude. I got back up, Bernie!
Oh, cat one!
I'm betting.
Falcon was cracked.
You guys. The other team's coming. Or is that your wall?
I need it. My wall. I walled the inside.
Val cracked. Help me.
Get in.
Oh, you guys, wait. Do not go down.
One dead.
Look for other team. Take roof. On me.
Last squad.
They're underneath for me.
Almost cracked. Val.
See nearly cracked.
Val's dead.
Yeah, see what's cracked. See what's nearly cracked underneath. What's finish me?
Cat one.
They're gonna get Nama swap.
Let's see one.
It's all you.
Dude, he's one.
I got no ammo. I got no fucking ammo.
Nice, get the swap. I'm playing slow. I'm gonna bait for you.
I got empties. Swap empties box.
Go. You got this.
I've got no ammo.
He's cracked. No.
I've got.
Oh, well, there it is. That's unfortunate for Moist. It was looking so good until it wasn't. 2 players running out of ammo in the final engagement. But great news for ADL Wolves, who will walk away with the win. So there you go. Heck, your XP and Legacy are more than happy to clean up those extra points. At the end of the day, though, I guess, you know, from the perspective that we were watching Genome, it's a disappointing end.
Yeah, a little bit. You could hear it in their voices, certainly, towards the end there. I had sort of both teams up on the screen there, and I can tell you that at one point, there were 2 players on Moist alive, with probably less than 30 health, I want to say, and the one remaining player on Adele Wolves there, also less than 30 health. So they were all about one, they were all one shot, basically. Honestly, they could have gone down there with a punch. I mean, we're talking about the ammo. If they literally had gone down there and just tried to two-man 1-2 him, they would have won, but obviously not necessarily going to know that. But yeah, wow, a really exciting finish. The way they dealt with Buriram United, who were underneath them as well, was really cool. You saw them just sort of taking all the foot shots, finishing them off with grenades, that kind of stuff, whittling them down until they were a duo and then being able to push them. And honestly, I think Moist had a pretty tough spot there to play in that final 3v3 as well. Adal, they were kind of watching from a distance, had full red armors, whereas Moist were having to sort of rely on the swaps and whatnot coming into that final fight. So the fact that they had the upper hand there at any point honestly speaks to their quality, and we were wondering, are they going to be as good on Storm Point as World's Edge? Well, sure, the ring pulled straight to them, but it kind of seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually kind of surprised at how long MT was able to survive. After that initial fight that they took, when they took the second fight coming out of the building, he seemed to live for a very, very long time, even though he was really, really low going into that engagement. And I think that's kind of what made it almost look like it was possible, almost doable for Moist. But either way, yeah, not so much in the end. There's the footage again of Rico going down. Not a very fun time, unfortunately for him, but... Either way, yeah, pretty chaotic game to start things off on Storm Point. We saw a lot of fights early on in the piece, just outside of the zone. And obviously the final fight was a really messy one as well. So kind of had a bit of everything in that game. I did enjoy that one. Just unfortunate that there were so many teams in there that were a duo, that you kind of put the caveat on a lot of these engagements and say, oh, well, would this have happened if it was a trio, or would it have played out in the same way? Probably not. I suppose that's just the nature of the beast, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a little bit. I mean, Permagerd, they managed to sort of hold out for quite a while until Moist sort of discovered that they were in there, and then it was a duo. We haven't talked that much about it, but, Sia did get nerfed a little bit in terms of sort of the heartbeat sensor and that sort of stuff. You won't see players sort of spamming right-click spamming that that heartbeat sensor anymore, because it does take, like, I don't know, say half a second, until that activates now, and so you can't just walk around like constantly spamming it like you're, you know, slide jumping around, something like that, right? You actually do kind of have to, you know, make a very small commitment to actually trying to get that information.
Well, just taking a look in these replays as to how that final fight did end up playing out. Yeah, very unfortunate. It was really just down to the wire. I think there's, you know, if there's another clip available, like if there's another 30 bullets available for either Waltzy or for Pricey, I think it was, that we're trying to clutch it out at the end. Maybe that's a different result, but it is what it is. That's just sometimes the nature of the beast. But look, again, I mean, a second place finish for Moist, more than acceptable at this point. They don't need any more points than what they've already got, and they're probably still going to walk away with the win in this lobby. For ADL Wolves, though, they were actually really quite desperate for some points. They were sitting on 4 going into that game.
Wow.
So finding the win, you know, that could potentially jump them back up into the top 10, potentially even challenging for somewhere inside of the top 6, something like that. But yeah, they've got a lot of work to do still to get themselves a decent overall placement for today. But that win is going to help a lot.
Yeah, Buriram inside the ring, happy with that one as well. Onyx, they do okay. IBG, yeah, we really just saw that, you know, that misplay from them in the mid game there, just leaving the building, which they probably would have got some of those kills anyway, honestly, if they had have stayed in that building and just waited for whoever the eventual victor was to come out of the cave. But instead, they start taking the back shots. They don't, you know, they don't either leave someone in the building to show presence and stop the other team from spreading to that, or, you know, something like that. There are a lot of options there, honestly, for them. And yeah, unfortunately, the one way they went with did not work out for them at all.
Take a look at the overall scores for the lobby so far today, and just see again how much Moist has been able to increase that gap. They're up to plus 34 over Onyx, who didn't exactly have the greatest of games. What's the record again in this region? It's like 120 something, isn't it? So they're probably a bit of a ways off that.
Good question. I think last split we didn't have super high scores. Actually, just going back and looking at it now, 96 was the record from split 1. That was while they were still known as Chicken Sandwich. And yeah, before that, it was definitely, I think, you know, it was definitely a rig score. But yeah, we'd have to go back even further to
114. I feel like is a number that's kind of in my head, but maybe anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't think we're really in a position to be talking about that at the moment. I mean, Moist is probably a little bit too far off of that kind of a scoreline, unless they were to go back to back and have a really big couple of finish games. But they're most certainly going to be taking at least top 2, most likely top 1. Onyx still looking pretty comfortable inside the top 2, and I mean, beyond that, it's kind of anybody's game, right? 29 points all the way down to, I mean, I even want to say Popcorn, right? If Popcorn has one good game here, they could still find themselves in the top 3. Well, sorry, 2 good games. Anyone below that, if you're still on single digits, maybe you're not quite so convinced. But you know, 2 of those teams that we talked about at the top of the day making those changes, Ironblood and Hermagerd, are really having a tough day now. As far as Hermagerd is concerned, I suppose you can give them the benefit of the doubt because it is just a duo, but so far those changes not looking like the best choices.
Yeah, no, I'm genuinely surprised. I like even like in the worst case for IBG that I would have seen, I would have expected them to be doing better than they are currently. But look, as you said, you know, a couple of, you know, there's a lot of teams, you know, that could gain a lot of points, and a lot of positions on that leaderboard with just the 1 or 2 decent games left to go. So hopefully IBG can keep their mentals, you know, primed and ready to try and take advantage of the last 2 games of Stormpoint.
Yeah, well, been speaking a lot about Moist Esports so far today, so we can take a look at their overview here and see how they've been going for the day. So I was actually wrong. They hadn't had a consistent top 3 placings. They finished 4th in game 1, but hey, look, 4th, 2nd,
That's
1st,
crazy.
2nd. I think you take that.
That is nuts. I mean, look, a minimum of 8 kill points per game, up to 15. And a minimum of 5, you know, with 9 and 12s there as well for placement points. That is insane. And I'm going to be fascinated to see what this graphic looks like at the end of the day as well, because if they can keep that up, that will be just such a ridiculously impressive performance here from the, well, you'd have to say is the premier team in APAC South.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have well and truly taken that mantle that Reignite left and sort of run with it, and it doesn't really seem like anyone is matching them. I mean, you know, we don't obviously get to see the other 10, 20 teams today, but like we don't get to see how all the lobbies integrate with one another, but I don't think that, like, you know, you look at today's lobby and you think, okay, this is not going to be anything but a representation of how any lobby that features Moist or Onyx, for example, is going to play out, because these two teams, they were consistent last split. They went overseas. They played really well overseas. They've come into today as well. They played really well today. So, you know, I mean, you put all those, like, I'm not a mathematician, right? But 1 + 1 = 2. So, I think you can just go ahead and say, yeah, I mean, these are going to be potentially two of the teams that we'll see go to the Split 2 playoffs. And I really wouldn't be disappointed to see them getting another bite at the cherry.
No, you wouldn't. I mean, they're, at the moment, they're top 10 teams in the world, right? And it's just crazy to say that, as, you know, as a general enjoyer of esports, you know, someone who watches, you know, a couple of esports and how we see Australian and even APAC teams doing a lot of those. The fact that we can say that we have several top 10 teams in the world is honestly such a blessing, and it's great that we get that quality here, because that starts lifting up all the other teams in the region as well, right? You know, these guys are all practicing with each other constantly. You know, the players from all around the APAC region are getting to benefit from playing against these teams like Moist and like Onyx, who can show them that next level.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we don't have long to wait for our next match, but let's just take a quick look back at the prize overview. Give you guys a little bit of an update as to what this is all about. 10k for first place. That's pretty good. I think you take that. Split between 3, not a bad shout, but obviously the teams that are going to be inside of that top 4/5, I mean, make the argument, but whatever. Go through to the international competition, and that's what everyone's really looking for.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the cash, of course, is a nice little bonus, but it's that sentence down the bottom there that really, that's what these teams are playing for. That's the stuff that dreams are made of. Well, the next game is getting started, so I'm sure we'll be jumping into that real quick, guys. It'll be interesting to see if you know, Moist is thinking about backing it up here on Storm Point. Well, sorry, backing it up as in, you know, having another good performance, not necessarily winning. But yeah, I'm just, with the consistency that we saw in that graphic, Elfish, I'm fascinated to see if they can keep it up for all 6 games throughout the day.
All right, let's find out. Can they manage to secure a top 4 in 6 games? I think that's definitely possible, the way they've been playing. And obviously they've got a really good drop location in Cascade Falls as well on this map, just very central, lots of nice rotations for them. And actually this circle pool as well is not a bad one for them. So it's all sort of headed in that direction. ADL Wolves, maybe not quite so lucky up there at Lightning Rod. Got a long way to go.
Yeah, indeed. This one's pulling sort of northwesterly, so that's over towards Checkpoint. Down B, see there's even a little bit of the mill in this one, so keeps going in that direction. Teams like Akuma, who are playing down beast at the moment, are going to be happy. Onyx, they're already on their way in the Trident out from the mill to try and grab a spot. And, you know, as you've been pointing out, they've been fairly good at picking out those positions so far today. Teams with a little bit longer to go, ones like ADL that we just saw there, having to come all the way from Lightning Rod, but at least they did get the ring console spawn, so they know where they are headed. Okay, Onyx looking to take top of down beast, be an interesting spot. And the team who started there might actually be challenging them right here, right now. Akuma, they're thinking about it. Oh, they might have actually just realized that Onyx had beat them to the punch and might have to pull back.
Oh, I don't know if they're going to be given the opportunity to do that. Obviously, they're underneath. Onyx is on top. But I can just see Raki kind of going for the beacon and having a bit of a look. See where the enemy positions are.
Yep, they get that information. Of course, that you get the other team will get that information as well. You know, they get scanned. You know, you've got that new opportunity to press the button and work out where the team that scanned you was. So both of the teams kind of running around down base at the moment. They know exactly where the other one is. Akuma, honestly, I think they're going to be kicking themselves. I know down base isn't necessarily the easiest to loot in terms of pathing and all that and stuff, but they should have been able to get up the top first before the mill team, I would think, especially you know, if they're believing that's where it's going to pull. I guess that said, Akuma, they didn't have that information. Like they can scan the survey beacon, but they didn't get a ring console this time. So you know, as big as the sort of the first ring is, they couldn't necessarily have predicted that it might be pulling up towards them. Either way, Onyx now are the ones going to be sort of looking down on the rest of the lobby from this vantage point.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing to say as well, in my opinion, is like, obviously, Onyx have been very quick on their rotations. They have been pretty much the first movers in every single one of these games, so beating them anywhere is going to be tough at the best of times. So they'll just leave it at that one, and we'll see whether or not Onyx have made another correct read. You know, we obviously have that little superstition, I suppose. Is it a superstition at this point that if the ring is touching on one edge, that's where it's going to pull again? And Onyx is right on that edge, so you'd expect that it's going to go well for them based on that.
Oh man, so I'm like gaming. You can see they're up towards North Pad. Are they going to do some crafting? They are going to spot out Eternal Photon, who are just sort of leaving. You got to remember Ant, they used to play from North Pad. Seems like they've sort of followed that over. Couple teams rotating in. You can see Buriram on, that's not a Trident, that is a Valk ult for them coming through the middle. They'll take up space in one of the octagons, which is actually not a bad shout in my opinion there to the north of Checkpoint. A lot of other teams playing down towards Beam as well, down towards you know, the IMC Armory to the southeast of Mill. So you've got Moist, you've got Popcorn, 505, we're having a look at them there in the IMC itself right now, and Dewa over towards Market.
Yeah, I mean, I just had a little bit of a scroll through those four teams, and actually none of them have got info on where the zone is going to go beyond this one, so
yeah. And this
it might be one of those situations, yeah.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about at the start, where it's like, oh wow, they've actually, Moist have tried to go to Godrock, and Walty, oh no, he might have DC'd. Okay, that's why he's been taken out.
Yep, he has.
So they're just going to try and punch him into a good spot. That's going to be tough. Hopefully he gets back in time. Fingers crossed for that one. But yeah, this is one of those situations, and like this is where I saw it happen last time as well. Was being where a lot of the teams, or at least a couple of the teams, do tend to rotate through Barometer, Sonata Caves, Jurassic Park, potentially even Mill. And if those teams see everyone else piling into that POI, they will just stop and be like, oh, okay, well, I guess maybe that's where it is.
Yep.
And they stop and they try and play from there. And then they get a very rude shock at when Zone 3 pops up on their radar and they're like, okay, everyone's wrong. You know, I can guarantee you there'll be a lot of cursing the other teams around them and being like, you guys don't know how to play the game. Why are we here? What am I doing with my life, basically?
Well, IBG forced to use the Dark Veil to just keep themselves relatively safe at the backside of Down Beast. Zone's pushing in. They're going to have to move out of there pretty quick. Onyx doing a bit of a number on that rotation. Fussy has got some shots, but it looks like IBG's okay for now. We'll back over to MTY White, who's all the way at the wall. So they're in the zone, fighting against Truth.
Yeah, a couple of teams still in the zone. I mean, below them, you've got Golden Sage over at Command Center and Stormcatcher still with ADL Wolves, who are currently just popping some meds over there. Golden Sage, interestingly, are picking up the Crypto here. I was expecting that Crypto probably wouldn't get played this season because there is a bug with him at the moment where you can't necessarily get the zone scans and how it interacts with... I believe it's if your teammate scans, it makes it yeah, something about you can't get your crypto scan off with the drone if maybe like your Catalyst teammate has already pinged the ring console. It's something like that. It's a little bit rough, unless they fix that actually. Unless they were talking about fixing, so perhaps that's come through and that makes more sense.
Either way, maybe just a comfort pick there and something that they just happy to run with that in mind anyway. Daewoo United now know that they chose incorrectly to situate themselves where they did, and so they have started to move their way back up toward the northern side, starting to come in near checkpoint. Alongside a bunch of those other teams. Moist have actually set themselves up near Mill. Waltzy, the update there, still not in. And Eternal Photon. Chilling for the moment. I mean, a little bit of damage going in that direction. They do need to get some upgraded armor there for Hickers, but looks to be okay.
Looks like Waltzy did not get back into the game. They've left him behind. MT and Pricey are moving now through the mill that they've seen where the zone rotation is going. The third zone, so it's pulling even further up towards Down Beast. And yeah, actually just got confirmation. Yeah, it was yesterday that the crypto bug supposedly got fixed. So just in time, the ALGS bit split. Lovely. That's you know, the couple of teams who do still want to play that character. Obviously, it's changed quite a lot now that he can no longer scan rings. Of course, he's in the recon class, so he's scanning where all the other players are now. If you guys haven't had a chance to sort of get around those class changes, it's been one of the biggest changes we've seen in Apex Legends since the game came out.
What do you reckon is the biggest change that Apex Legends has had? I want to say Evos, armor Evos was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, there's been a couple. That one, dropping with like meds and shields, is also another pretty big change, I would say. The changing, you know, the amount of like items you can hold in your inventory over time, that's changed quite a bit. The amount of ammo stacks, the amount of grenades you can have, shield batteries, all that kind of stuff going back probably, I don't know, 5-10 seasons now. They made some of those changes, would probably be the ones that stand out to me. But yeah, honestly the class one might be the biggest of them all. It's definitely been a big shake-up for both you know, your just general games as well as your ranked competitive games.
Well, that's good. Keeps things fresh. And you know what? This is a bit of a change up as well. The way that this game is played out, I feel like we haven't really seen as many teams going down quite so early. Now there are a couple of like ring edge engagements happening all over the place, but it doesn't really seem like many of them have really properly come to a head just yet. So we've still got 19 teams alive, 51 players. Everyone's just spending time moving rather than fighting.
The ring's closing in around a couple of teams over here. So we've got Eternal Photon running away from Truth, who are still outside this next zone. And then Golden Sage also looking on from the southeast. So these three teams kind of locked into a bit of a confrontation here. Can Truth manage to make their way out without taking too much damage, without going down to one of these two teams who are really looking to grab the KP here? You can see Golden Sage actually, wow, they actually go down to Eternal Photon, or at least take a hit from that. Truth decide they want none of this. They're actually going all the way north and potentially looking to just do some crafting over at Northpad until these teams give up and go away.
Yeah, I feel like that has kind of been the mentality for Truth this game so far today. They've very often gone and played edge. They've tried to avoid fights until they don't really have any other options. I mean, they've had one or two decent games. I think they're sitting... Where are they sitting? 8th overall? So it's not as if today's been awful for them, but it hasn't been fantastic either. I don't know that they need to change anything up necessarily, but yeah, I think this is very much in line with the mentality that they've come into today with, so I'm not too surprised to see them do that.
So the ring will rarely pull inside of checkpoint, but inside the ring, starting around there meant they felt like it's a decent spot to play from. Maybe watch some rotations come through and just use the choke access to the west of checkpoint to eventually push on from there. I mean, they did have that ring console knowledge. No, they didn't actually. Just having a look at. Oh no, sorry. Yes, they did. Sorry, I was on a different team. Because of course, yeah, not everyone is playing with a recon character. Well, what used to be a recon character, what is now a controller character,
which
would give you access to that ring knowledge. So, like, you know, Truth Esports, for instance, who are playing Bang, Valk, and Seer, yeah, they don't have access to that. They can scan the survey beacons with Seer, but they can't scan the ring consoles.
I did like that tweet that you made as well about the control versus controller discussion.
Oh,
like,
dude.
So these guys are like, these legends are the ones that only controller players can pick or something? Like, is that what it is?
Yeah, I know. Like, surely there was a word available that like didn't have to confuse those
Scout?
two things.
I don't know,
but,
something like that. Could have been
we
a
could
Scout.
still, yeah, exactly. There's gotta be one. Hopefully, who knows? Will we get that changed eventually? I'm gonna say probably not.
If
but
you make
I
enough
live in
noise,
hope.
mate, you're a pretty big deal in
hope.
Apex Legends now. I reckon you can facilitate that. Yeah.
I'll shout it out at LAN.
Yeah, exactly.
Get some signs going in the crowd, you know.
Yeah. We're just watching ADL Wolves right now take a couple of pot shots at who is that across from them? I think it's Hermagerd the duo, or is it's Casuals maybe. Either way, Casuals and Hermagerd are in pretty close proximity to this, but ADL Wolves are sort of headed down in the direction of Hermagerd, who, again, have been having a pretty tough run today. I don't really want to harp on too much about Hermagerd. I think it's just been, you know, what it is, I guess, when you're playing as a duo. This is where it could get a little bit worse as well for them, because ADL Wolves are definitely having a look, but those Sentinel shots ringing out are kind of turning them away.
I mean, Moist, honestly, doing the same. They're a duo right now in this game. We can always compare them against that barometer, you know, that measure of success. But certainly a couple of other trios that are looking to do a little bit better this game. ADL Wolves, as you said, have they recognized that Hermagerd is the duo savior? Does grab a nice shot in the Sentinel to start things off, but they really can't take this head on. It's going to be so hard for them.
Well, pot shots coming in. Peck able to avoid the majority of that. Will just top himself up as we turn back to 5:05. And Mexus now the kill leader for this game. So maybe the fortunes are changing a little for 5:05. They're having a decent game today. Things haven't really continued in that fashion. ADL Wolves as well, suffering from success. It seems like if you win a game, the next game tends to prove a little difficult unless your name's Moist. So see if ADL Wolves can dig themselves out of this situation, because they have actually got a bit of a move that they do need to make. They need to get through this fight quite quickly. Well, now we're back over to 5:05, and once again they're finding themselves in another engagement, doing a lot of work and dealing with MDY White quite comfortably. Yeah, it's just Feiju that'll get away from this engagement, but he's going to run into Jesco, so he might go down in pretty quick succession.
Popcorn, the duo there, is actually looking at him, and like you can see them just holding their fire for a little bit, because obviously as a duo you don't necessarily want to show yourself, but if they realize it's just him by themselves, yeah, they've cottoned on to that fact, and now they are going to chase after him and try and be like, well, there's the one team that, you know, we can take a fight with an advantage on. This is Casuals plugging down at the hill. As soon as ADL Wolves took that fight, basically Casuals just took the position above them and have been just causing havoc. That's why Hermagerd is still alive, because ADL kind of can't find an easy way to take the fight inside, run past the fences, especially while they're taking all this cover fire from Casuals. But over at Down Beast, where this game will be ending, we can see some other action going on.
Yeah, I'm just also watching Jolas. He's about to make a port here around the back, so maybe that's actually an exit avenue for not only Hermagerd but also ADL. Yeah, they're going to follow through that port. This is going to be interesting. But anyway, watching X and Y underneath Down Beast for the moment. Don't know that it's going to last too much longer for them. There's some thermite ticks going on, so a bit of a chase at the
ADL
moment.
almost died.
Yeah, well, chase through a port. That's what's going to happen.
I mean, you know, actually, there's obviously not many wraiths in the lobbies, but that's another change that we could just touch on briefly, is that, you know, her portal got much, much longer. And wow, everyone is just dying here. 5:05, they had all that time to loot up over in checkpoint and move through, doing some damage through the choke there. Then we're looking at Daewar down the bottom here, getting
what's going on?
Not the greatest time. That Kraber feels like it's going to be going into someone else's hands pretty soon. Probably Onyx, who are pushing
them in the north right now are perfectly healthy.
Yeah. Lahim is the last member alive for Daewoo United right now, and Fussy is on the hunt. He is looking to finish off those knocks, but Onic are being quite passive for the moment. I think Fussy wants to push forward. He just needs his teammates to come with him. If they go together, this is the freeze kill of their lives, and eventually they've kind of cottoned on to that. There are some cross shots, yes, but it's just from Mexus and Forgotten, and oh, you'd have to think there's no way Daewoo gets out of this one alive. Lahim still surviving, but he's only got a couple of boxes as cover now.
He's going through the boxes one by one, picking up his armor swaps. I think he's finally run out of them, so he's having to actually rely on his meds now. But yeah, the shot's coming crossways there, the crossfire from 505, and Onic essentially finally will put paid to Daewoo's chances in this lobby, and we've got 7 squads left alive now. The Moist duo, who lost their Valkyrie and just walked into one of these buildings, I mean, it wasn't great for their rotations, but now that they're inside, Sia Cat is probably the 2 characters, the 2 legends you'd want to have alive, being able to reinforce these doors. So they may survive yet a little bit longer. Meanwhile, Eternal Photon are going to go up against Let's Go here on the northern side.
Yeah, but it's it looks like it's going to be a bit of a prolonged engagement. They're just looking at each other through the glass on those buildings. Not really taking the fight just yet. Onic, on the other hand, are making a bit of a move. Some shots going into Akuma.
Yeah, they have to use the Dark Veil to try and push in there. Moist actually trying to make some, show some presence there to try and keep themselves alive. So they'll put down a little bit of damage to Onic, but they can't really commit with the duo. The duo of Akuma as well was on top of them. Onic did force them back a little bit, so it looks like they're okay in this next zone.
Oh, Pricey is getting quite active right now and putting a lot of pressure on Onic. You can see they're still all quite low. Losing Shadi to the
Fussy now
as well. Yeah, this is really not ideal at all for Onic, and this is a world where if Moist feels confident they could capitalize on it. I'll be interested to see if they do, because 505 has rocked up behind them as well. That's where those shots are starting to come through. Wall down. Moist back in their shell.
The Skynade's hitting. Raki now a solo with his 2 teammates being put in the boxes right beside him. Oh man, that was a very unfortunate rotate there from Onic. Not really able to weather the storm, unlike Moist here, who, it doesn't matter. Their doors can go down, but of course, with Catalyst, they can keep reinforcing that. 505, well, they may not have their 3rd member around to bring back in with that respawn beacon, but they can chuck it down just to give themselves a little bit of extra cover. Akuma finally recovering a little bit and managing to get the extra res. That's nice for them.
Yeah, Raki just trying to do a bit of scouting, see if he can spot anybody with the ultimate. Knows there's a couple of members in the building next to him, which is obviously Moist. Can't see too much through the smokes. Or Chan. Under pressure though. From the backside, this is EP chasing down onto Akuma. And Raki has found the opportunity there as well to potentially put some damage through, get a kill point out of it. He does so.
Nice.
The other one will go the way of EP, but that's the end of Akuma, and now Raki has pushed his way forward.
Yeah, he's going to have to push these abilities to the limit as well. Just as a solo seer, he's going to need to use that Heartbeat Center to try and avoid as many other teams as possible.
On the other side of this
Unfortunately,
wall.
he does get spotted out because Eternal Photon have cottoned on to his position. They will take him out, and now they have to deal with Let's Go.
Oh, it doesn't look like that's going very well for them. Holiday's down, another player dropping, and it's just Gilon who will try to survive. But I think the day is done for Eternal Photon in this game at the very least. Moist have somehow still managed to keep their heads down.
In the top 3.
To be honest,
Are you kidding me?
To be honest, this is definitely a winnable game because 505 is the other team there. There's a duo. Let's Go is a trio, but they've got a member down on the floor, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to get the res with the zone moving the way that it is. So it's 2v2v2. This is very winnable for any one of these teams, but knowing that it's Moist, you have to think it could well be Moist walking away with the win right here. They are keeping themselves out of this engagement for as long as possible. And they know now is the time to strike. They're going to go through the wall. Damage down onto the Bangalore. Empty's getting low. Pricey is going to have to be the one to finish this one off with the Prowler. Dashing back and forth through that wall. Bangalore still has armor. Hiding behind the down shield. And 505 still survive. That's their second win for the day. And they deny Moist the duo victory. But they get one of their own.
That would have been one of the most just ridiculous victories of all time if Moist had taken that out. But full credit there to 505. As you said, 2 victories already today. You know, out of 5 games is a very, very solid start. Well, not a start, just a very solid day for them, and probably is going to put them up in contention for, I'd say, top 3 around, you know, where Onic is sitting at the moment. Yeah, look, the fact that, you know, just everything that happened in that game, and there were 3 duos at the end, it was a 2v2v2, right there. As you said, Moist, they played it well, they kept control of that building, used the Dark Veil right there at the end. You could see, Pricey was jumping around left and right, just trying to use the fact that the opposing Bangalore couldn't really go through that without getting stunned, but it just wasn't enough. Either way, they still walk away with 9 placement points. And how many kills did they end up with in the end? Yeah, look, only 2. Oh my god, 505 got 14 kills that game.
That's a lot. And 505 was a duo for the latter part of that game as well. For quite a while, just around Down Beast, they were playing as 2, so they've done a really good job for themselves in that one. I don't think their consistency today has been enough such that that result is going to push them into a world where they are contesting Moist for first. I mean, the unfortunate thing is, like, they've had 2 wins, but the other couple of games that they've played today, they've sort of gone missing a little bit, so they're really relying on big games to carry their overall points today rather than the consistency factor. And that's kind of what's let them down. But yeah, surely they'll be in the race for a second place now.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a possibility there. With a massive game there, I mean, what's that, 26 points that 505 are going to be picking up there for our 5th game of the day. That's pretty impressive, honestly. So. Yeah, look, it's been a good day for a couple of teams. 505 is someone that we weren't talking about all that much, I guess, in Split 1. But maybe this is the start of something new, start of something special, and certainly every team, of course, is just wanting those land spots, right? So, you know, if they walk away with 21 or 18 split points from a 2nd or a 3rd spot here today, that does go a long way towards, you know, that sort of, you know, what is it, 100-point threshold or something around there that you need to crack on?
I was just going to have a look at that and see what the points were. It was 119 EXO in 5th.
Right, okay.
That they got. I mean, obviously Dreamfire got 111 and ended up going because they were missed out, but
yeah,
you know, you can't really be relying on that. So, yeah, if you'd probably be wanting to aim for about 120 points, and you have what, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lobbies. I think each like group plays like Group A plays 7 times, Group B plays 7 times, Group C plays. I think that's right. So how?
I think it's right. Well, it's a triple round robin, right? So you're playing each group. You're playing each other group 3 times. So it'll be 6 games, or sorry, 6 series throughout the regular season, plus the regional finals.
Right.
So yeah, you'll essentially have like 7 opportunities to contribute. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I mean, you want to be sitting at about 15 to 20 points per day, per game day is kind of what I'm saying. That's the important part. And so that's where you want to be aiming for. Anyway, let's have a look at the scoreboard and see how much 505 have been able to jump up. And yeah, well and truly in the race for a second, as expected. Onic now have a bit of pressure on their shoulders because they've slowed down since we've gotten onto Storm Point. That wasn't too bad from them, but I think they would have been wanting to run away with the second place a little bit more than what they have been able to do so now. They've definitely fallen off the pace.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about their, how they were going on World's Edge, they had a second, a third, and a second, and then it was a 7th with 0 KP in round 4. So yeah, Onic definitely struggling a little bit more here on Storm Point, and as we expected, some teams are going to have big differences in how they perform on those two maps. You do see some teams getting maybe up to 60, sometimes even 70% on one map versus the other. Moist kind of being the exception here today in that they just absolutely killing it no matter what. And with a DC, they get a 2nd place. That's I don't know. What are you going to do to stop these guys? Honestly.
Not too much, not too much. But either way, look, time for us to head to another short break. We've got one more game for you coming up today, so don't go too far away. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back on into ALGS. It's APAC day number 1. It's been a pretty big day, all things considered. I think normally we probably would have been done by now through the 6 games, but we did have a bit of a reset city for game 2. Anyway, we're at the end of the day, almost. We got one more game yet to go. So, bit of moving and shaking going on still on that scoreboard. I thought, after those first couple of games, that by this stage, we'd probably have an established first, which we do. I thought we'd probably have an established second, which we do not. There's very much still a world where Onic could get knocked out of second place by 505, or maybe 1 or 2 other teams, potentially as well. So, interesting stuff going into this final game.
Yeah, and we saw last split how close some of those qualification points can be, right, Elfish? So if you drop down from, you know, a second place to a third place in this lobby and you're losing out like in a couple of those split points, like that could genuinely make the difference. So they need to be fighting for all of these points. They need to come back because obviously Onic have had a terrible storm point so far. And honestly, like, yeah, apart from the start of the day seemed very slow, but the rest of it, I was just like, wait, are we seriously up to game 6 already? Like, I don't know, it's gone very fast in the second half of it. So just having a quick recap of those scores that we were talking about, you can see Moist have absolutely locked this up. There is no question about it. They will be the first place team here in this lobby. And then, you know, if we go over to Onic and 505, you can see that they're kind of battling it out for second and third. And then there's a bunch of teams down there who will probably be shuffling around in this last game when you consider, you know, there's only 5 points between 6th to 10th.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where one game could really drastically improve your overall split performance just because of the amount of points that you get. You know, obviously it's a fairly convoluted format. For those that are new, maybe that are just tuning in for the first time, based on the points you get today, you get overall split points, but you don't carry these points over to like the next games you play. So Moist doesn't get to carry on 100 plus points into the next lobby that they play. They get 25 points for winning, and then we start fresh the next time they play, and if they win again, they get another 25 points, and they do that over the course of 6 to 7 days potentially, and see how many points you get at the end of the split, and then that's what actually gets you the qualification slots. So yeah, but actually probably a good time to talk about the split. We've got all these 6 days, and you know, obviously 6 days worth of competition, plus we're looking forward to sort of obviously seeing these teams go and play overseas in the Split 2 playoffs. So quite a bit of Apex Legends still yet to come for you early on in the year.
Yeah, and so if you have a look at the schedule, you know, obviously Split 1 was just week after week, you know, back-to-back action. This time there will be a little bit of a break in the middle, so we'll have the first 3 weeks over the next 3 weeks, and then we'll have a 2-week break and start up again in April as we head towards that regional finals there on day 6, where we decide who does in fact go overseas, which 5 teams will be representing APAC South on the world stage. And gosh, they've got a lot to live up to, don't they, Elfish, with how phenomenally our teams have performed in every single LAN since Apex Legends started, or the ALGS has started, at least I should say.
Yeah. It's definitely a weight on their shoulders, I'm sure, but I think at this point we do have a lobby reset. So that's why we're waiting, for those of you that are wondering. So we're just working through that. I feel like I've kind of cursed it a little bit there, Gene. I mean, I really should not have brought it up as we came back in. But anyway, look, we'll take a half a second here. We've got the IBG video for you guys to take another look at here if you didn't see it earlier. So just check in with that one, and then hopefully we'll be ready to jump in with the game. And welcome back to what will be the final game of the day. We're going to head into Storm Point in just a second for ALGS. This is APAC South. It is the first day of the split, and it's always a good day. I think APAC South is always the first region to start, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it has been almost every time, if not every single time. So yeah, it is a bit of an honor to to kick it off every time. Often to be the first region to send our teams to LAN as well. To get that confirmation of who's going to be repping. So yeah, it's cool.
Big responsibility, and look, let's try to close the day out quite nicely as we do head into Storm Point for the final time today. It is the last game of Groups A and B. And I think what we're looking for out of this final match is, well, that battle between Onyx and 505 and, well, maybe then a couple of other teams as well, potentially in the discussion there. But definitely those two are leading for the second placed finish. Moist Esports, I don't think anyone can really catch them for first. And then there's a lot going on in the middle of the pack. So a lot of moving and shaking can still be done here in this last game.
Yeah, definitely still some opportunities, especially in that 5 to 10 region, to make things a little bit different, to change your fate, as it were, going into this final game of today. Yeah, I've just been looking at some of the stats that we have going here, Elfish, and looking at through the pick rates for today. So it's probably no surprise to us that the top pick rate by quite some margin, as we see we're getting a pull down south here, potentially towards launch pad, or maybe even a bit more of a mid-map position, we will see. But yeah, the most prevalent composition so far has been Catalyst, Seer, and Valkyrie, sitting at 43%, so almost half the lobby across both maps have been playing that composition, and then that's followed by Bang, Cat, and Seer, sitting at almost 20%, and then from there it gets a little more scarce with some of the edge teams. You've got Bang, Seer, Valk, and you've got Bang, Horizon, Seer as well coming in a little bit.
Can you see what the Catalyst pick rate is? Because we were talking about it wasn't quite 90%.
Yes,
I don't
think. So actually, the way they format it, it's the highest though. So at the moment we've got 76 Catalyst picks, and then 75 Seer picks, 68 for Valkyrie. So all three of those, sitting quite high.
Okay, fair enough. Well, yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. I don't know what you'd go for, but I personally think I'd be a fan more so of the Valkyrie variant. I still just think that mobility and rotation ability is just still a little bit too valuable for me to be dropping if I was choosing my ideal squad.
Yeah, it's tough. As I said, like I genuinely think that the Valk ultimate, the Skyward Dive, is just not as good a rotational tool as it used to be, and with the way that zones pull and sort of where they end on Storm Point, you get slightly less buildings in those final zones, and that makes you want that extra cover from the smokes from Bang a little bit more, and that's one of the reasons why teams do tend to pick that on Storm Point. I guess one of the other ones being that because Skyward Dive, it depends on where you pop the ultimate. So if you're popping it on low ground, you won't get as far as if you're popping it on high ground. So if you're having to move south to north, depending on what team you are, what POI you've got, the ultimate is also a little bit less effective in terms of its ability to get you into the right spot at the right time.
That's definitely a good point. I think something that most players probably don't consciously think about. This has been an interesting rotation from Moist. I've just been watching them go back and forth over those cannons for a little bit, but seems as though they've finally started to make their way in toward launch pad. This rocky outcrop we've seen get played a lot by no shortage of teams, but it's a bit of a scary spot to play this early on because a lot of people are still going to be rotating in. It's still kind of out in the open. Could cause some problems.
Yeah, we've got some fights going down towards Gale Station, actually. Fate and 505. Oh, sorry, no, Fate and Casuals are having a little bit of a skirmish down there. Casuals do lose out in the end, actually. Were they a full... Yeah, wow. So I think they've actually just lost to the duo of Fate there. So honestly, congrats to them. And then over at the other IMC, or another IMC on the map. There we've got X and Y and 505 kind of going at it here. Trying to get a sense of whether they've, you know, done the IMC already, when that's going to start popping out. But you can see, yeah, okay, it is opening now. They're just going to take the option to get out pretty much straight away. Can X and Y snipe any of them out of the sky? No, the Nemesis this time, it's pretty good, but it's not enough.
505. Slowly but surely working their way through. Golden Sage as well. Just trying to keep things as relaxed as possible in this little engagement against IBG. I'd say Golden Sage are probably suffering a little bit worse in this fight. IBG have got the better of the armor and the equipment, and already you can start to see that coming to the fore. They've got nice crossfire angles as well established, and IBG really doing a number on Golden Sage right there. The nades to go through as well. If not finishing them off, will do a good amount of work, and so Golden Sage eliminated. It didn't really look too difficult for IBG there.
I was having a look at Teddy's POV there. He missed a couple of PK shots, got about 20 damage in about a full PK clip there. You need more than that, especially when IBG is pushing you, you know, in close proximity. They're in your face. You really need to be getting the 100 pumps out there to bat them away, but they don't. And so IBG, they're currently running into Prowlers while being chased by the ADL Wolves, and they've got inside the ring on top of them as well. They've been spotted out. Arc Stars coming through. Are IBG going to be able to weather this storm is another question we have to ask here, because they've really, you know, as we said, they've struggled today. There we go. They get a team wipe, a couple of KP to their names at the very least. But they need to do so much more than that, Elfish. And honestly, we expect so much more out of them when you consider the stories behind these players on these teams and the skill level of Jarrow, Player K, and Panna.
Yeah, I think they've got a lot to prove coming back in future weeks as well. I mean, I'm not sure that it's going to really fully come together this week for them, but it's still going to be salvageable, definitely, this season. Eternal Photon have been one of the big winners of today. I think they've done a really good job, but looks like a tough journey through the final game of the day for them. MDY White trying to gatekeep them a little bit, just outside of command center here.
Rocking the new Wraith heirloom as well there, by the way. Big spender.
Let's head down.
Well, I'm just going to put it out there that I don't have a single heirloom.
Hey, join the club, buddy. Join the club. Season 1 player.
Yeah. So it's I don't know if it's maybe a problem with you or your bank account, Genome, but anyway. I feel like, well, I don't know. I feel like, you know, maybe you cast an international Apex Legends event, they should give you an heirloom. Like that could be like...
Surely it's like one heirloom per event,
One
right?
heirloom per event, yeah.
You'd kind of hope so. Then at least I'd have a couple in the collection, and you would too. But
put that one in the list, yeah.
Yeah. Either way, we are seeing a pull down towards Launchpad here. So teams that early pulled up there early. We have Popcorn. You know, in terms of important positions, yes, you can see they're on the catwalk. They're holding that charge rifle. Not sure if that's the one that you get. You know, usually there is it's like a guaranteed sniper spawn up the top of that catwalk. But they do have the attachments to go with it as well, which is very handy. Charge rifle, of course, one of the most annoying weapons in the game. People really love to hate on that gun, but it's just so damn good at getting your evos up. Then you can see underneath we've got 20th guaranteed playing from down in the sewers. Let's go. They're actually holding the building at the back of Launchpad, and then as we touched on earlier, Moist holding that position. Sort of cuts through towards Stormcatcher and the sort of the bottom of that hill. You can see a fight here going on with Buri Ram. This is against the duo there of Hermagerd, and once again they're trying to, you know, pull up with the fences going on, but unfortunately that's not enough to keep Buri Ram at bay. They do lose Lala Bang, but you know, there's a respawn beacon nearby.
Yeah, but with that said, IBG is quite quite close by next to that respawn beacon, so it's not exactly going to be the easiest of respawns to pull. And also, you're basically dead center of the map, so...
Yeah.
Also, that area is quite open in terms of, like, there's obviously the big hill above you right here where Eternal Photon is, and if they see a spawn coming in, you know, you can quite quickly get down that hill to try to sort of get a bit of a chase on if you so desire. Or you could just play from the high ground, try and get some pot shots off. I think even if you were to get the res off, I'm not sure that player would survive, or they'd be quite lucky to survive given the circumstances. But, you know, at least that is an option if it ends up playing out that way.
Gopgaps is going for it. He's actually just pulled it off. Lala Bang will be coming back in. You know, whether or not IBG managed to take him out is another question. But as you can see, there's some more imminent action here up the hill with Eternal Photon going against inside the ring. The Catalyst walls have come out though, and they are sort of showing each other off. Oh no! And
I don't even know if he landed.
For his trouble as well, so now it's only a blow left for the Thai team, and he's popping the skyward dive. He is leaving his teammates for death.
See, I think that's the bait of it, really. You've got to look at it in that situation and think, how likely are we to get this off? And if we do get this off, how likely is that player to survive? And also, how much attention does that draw to us? And with all those things considered, obviously it's not worked out for Buriram, and so a flow... He will try his best to survive, but he has landed in a Hornet's Nest, so I can tell you he's probably not going to be lasting too much longer. Maybe alongside Eternal Photon. Some shots headed in their direction, but they're doing a little bit better. They are, though, being chased by MDY White, who maybe don't want to be too over-eager, but what they have at least achieved is pushing EP into ADL Wolves, and ADL feeling confident after the win they got earlier. Are going to push their way into this engagement. They know this is a wounded team coming out from the zone, so it's a good opportunity for them to potentially grab a couple of quick points, and that looks like it'll be exactly what does happen. Just the one member left of Holiday to try to survive.
And this could be a really disappointing end to the day for Eternal Photon
this
as
is
well.
Messy,
They go out, and they were in 4th place. They had a win, they had a 4th with 8 kills last game. So they were doing really well, and they were on track to pick up some big split points. But going down early now, you know, there is a chance that Kuma, Dewa, maybe even X and Y can overtake them in the next game.
Yeah, I am a little bit concerned about though for ADL Wolves. They took a long time to finish those 2 kills off. They drew a lot of attention to themselves, and MDY White have kind of gotten on top of them before they've been able to properly reset. There you can see Beiju gets that first knock, is traded back on down, but he's done enough damage to that next player that the trade can come through again quite cleanly for MDY, and it's just heck here for ADL Wolves. Though, with that said, I'm watching the minimap, and inside the ring, a duo are starting to work their way across. So this is starting to become quite a hot area of the map, and in the end, MDY White might fall prey to exactly what they just did to ADL Wolves if they're not careful.
Okay, inside the ring. A little bit rough now, and MDY White, who kind of, I think they came out of the zone sort of during the last ring, and have been trying to make something happen, but they might have pushed it a little bit too far. ADL Wolves down to just 1, MDY White trying to get back on their feet. XNY actually are pulling up on them, and they're pulling up on fast. They're skirting in with the Trident on their north side.
Right here.
Well, things have relaxed a little bit, but X and Y have rocked up quite close to MDY, and also now, they were united to gatekeeping Akuma out, but we'll jump back over to MDY White. They're really fighting for their lives at this point, aren't they? Dewa, sorry, not Dewa. It's X and Y, who are really, actually more so on the receiving end of that, and even now, their last member trying to escape down into Launchpad is receiving shots from the teams toward the back end there. And it looks like MDY will get through that one okay, aside from Mingyu.
Yeah, I think he's definitely getting left behind. It was a very messy fight initiated there by X and Y, and yeah, they paid the price in the end. They're going to drop out. They had the sort of choice to initiate that, and it certainly did not work out for them. Dewa further into the circle. They're going to have a building to play from. You can see 505 sort of just trying to pepper them in there. Using the grenades as well. Akuma coming in on the left side as well. They're getting some cracks, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to keep them alive. Orchan is down. They've got no more smoke canisters, therefore, to try and provide them cover, and I think 505 are probably going to pick up the KP there. They are actually pushing up and looking.
Onyx is still alive, but they've been keeping their heads down, that's for sure. They're in that little set of buildings just outside of Launchpad to the south. So kind of keep that in mind when you're watching 505 involved in these engagements, really farming some kill points. If they get through this one with a win, which I wanted to say looks like they're going to be able to do. Maybe I've spoken too soon, but no. Daewoo United goes down. 505, that's another 3 points on the board, and that would, I think, actually put them above Onyx now in terms of where they're actually placed. Obviously, that could change depending on who survives longer in this game, but Onyx, with their playstyle that tends to be a little bit slower, they like to wait it out before fighting quite a bit later in the game. Maybe don't stand to farm up as many points as what 505 will if they have a good game here. So, just something to think about.
Pulling to the south finger here of Launchpad. As you said, some important stakes there between 505 and Onyx if they do eventually come to blows on that southern side of the map. Daewoo's full send into 505 did allow Akuma to at least reset to 2 members. Will it go any further than that? Kind of hard to say. They're actually going pretty well. It's only B left alive right now. He's going to have to use the black hole here. Will that manage to get all the members pulled into it? No, they might have broken it in time, I think. And that is a phenomenal fight win from Akuma. The 2v3 taking out 5v5. And as you said, could potentially have a big impact on where some of these teams end up in the standings at the end of today.
Well, I think that's going to be quite disappointing for 505 as they were really in a position to nab second, and now that's, I would say, probably going to slip through their grasp. Onyx really just has to keep themselves alive for a couple more placement points or some kill points here or there, and they should be able to hold on to it. So, opportunity gone missing. I would make the argument there for 505, but anyway, we'll see what Akuma can do as they still have to make their rotate in, and I think despite the fact that they've done such a good job of ruining 505's day, Onyx is probably not going to give them any mercy. Yeah, there you go.
Gone down straight away, but IBG will then pull up into Onyx. 3 red armors for them, but they've taken a little bit of damage pulling up towards them. Onyx, their armors are worse overall, but it might actually even out with how this fight started. A couple of Sierra ults and Cat ults going down, as we said before, the all-important combo for this season. Onyx doing a great job from the high ground here. They're going to pull down, and IBG, I think, once again, are going to suffer.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. It's actually quite a clean wipe in the end there from Onyx. They didn't even lose a single player. Everyone was standing, and so they've got a bit of time now to reset. Moist is on their way, but shots are coming through.
Yeah, you can see that, the Catalyst wall, trying to get Moist involved in this.
Well, Waltzy is quite low, but it looks like they're quite keen to try and take this challenge, but I think Onyx are mostly reset. Raki at about half shields, but looking to pop a bat. Fussy as well, and Moist, yeah, I mean, I think they've just missed the window there a little bit to have a clean, easy fight. Now they're going to have to do it the good old-fashioned way, and Waltzy drops early on in the piece, and that is going to give some extra confidence to Onyx to actually look to try and take this fight forward. Fussy trying to finish that knockoff, gets aggressive, goes down to the missile swarm, but Onyx have secured that kill, and they can get the res on Fussy and reset.
Okay. Pricey was pulling out, actually went back to chuck one last R9 clip into it to see if he could get anything done. Oh man, I guess Moist saw that as their path through to the next zone. And they felt, you know, look, they're going to be resetting, maybe we'll be able to get in here. It was a decisive move by Moist. It was just the mechanics, the on-ground execution that really led to their downfall this time. So now Pricey left alone to try and rat this one out. Perhaps the first game that Moist, you know, are going to not make it into, what is it, the top 4 today? Kind of unreal stat that. Fate, after winning that early 2v3, by the way, have managed to make a nice little spot. You can see they're up the top there of this circle. So that unlikely scenario has actually netted them real benefits coming into the back end of this game, as we've got 5 squads left alive, and all of those ones having to pull out of Launchpad now, going to get into fights.
Little quick rotation coming through here from Jesko, and they run right into Truth. maybe not the team that they wanted to get on top of. Just go very low. Kizik's on the floor, and that is that. Popcorn down. Truth also eliminated in that mess. Really leaves the door open here for Onyx potentially. 20th guaranteed are kind of hiding in that corner as well. They're down to 2. You've got Fate, who are playing as a duo as well toward the southern side. They're completely out of this engagement, and if Onyx wins this clean, which they do, they now have a 3-on-2 in front of them. So you'd expect them to close that out.
They actually throw some thermites in. The thermites are ticking. They've both got red armor. If there's any time to push, it's now. They don't want Onyx to reset it all, and they'll come in for the final fight, even getting the first knock.
Yeah, Fussy goes down, but there is a quick trade coming through from Raki. It's still going to end up being a 1-on-2 for Mayantu. The Bangalore ulti goes down. Smoke's out here as well. I don't even know if there was maybe a thought of a res in there somewhere, but he was standing right on top of the shield. And either way, it does not matter because Onyx is too strong. They'll clean it up comfortably and win the final game of the day. It's not going to be enough to get them into first place, I don't think, Genome, but it will definitely secure them for second.
Lovely finish there by Onyx. I mean, they had to hold off Moist, they had to hold off IBG. There were a lot of fights that they had to win to make that happen in the end. You know, big shout out to Fate, honestly. The 2v3 at the start was solid, and the 2v3 that they almost pulled off against Onyx was fantastic there. So, look, it wasn't the greatest day from them. We were looking before. I think they were sitting at 4 points or something after 4 games, but, you know, with a nice second place and a couple of kills to go along with that here. They end up with 3 kills in the end. They will move a bit further up the scoreboard there. So Fate certainly getting their bearings still in the Pro League, but you know, as a duo, that's an incredible effort here in Game 6. Looking further along the kills in the scoreboard here, Onyx finished with 12. You know, it wasn't even like they were just picking them off slowly, Elfish. They were, you know, taking full-on team fights and winning solid 3v3s, and that, I think, says a lot about their quality and how good they are as a team.
Yeah, and it wasn't even as if it was against weaker teams. You know, you're not sort of noob bashing, right? They went straight up against Moist and IBG, right? So in theory, 2 teams that should be some of the best. I don't think IBG has really come together today, but Moist definitely has, and obviously we know what IBG was able to do last season. So yeah, they had to work hard to get through that game, Onyx, and it looked like they were going to take it easy. It looked like they were really just going to play that one passively, and I think that was what they were hoping to do, but it did start to ramp up toward the back end for them. And yeah, I mean, it feels like a long time ago that I was talking about 5-on-5 potentially taking second, because they were fragging out a little bit harder than Onyx was at one point, but yeah, obviously them breaks, and 5-on-5 do miss out on that. I think they probably still do enough to hold on to third, though. I'm not sure that they would have been overtaken for that position, so probably still quite a good finish for them today, all things considered. But yeah, I mean, the top 2 teams that we expected to be the top 2 teams come in to today and also walk out of today in first and second, so kind of continues to reinforce those opinions.
It does. A little bit of a better game for 20th guaranteed. You know, finishing up in third there, as we saw. They also picked up 5 kills. Popcorn fourth with 6 kills. And Iron Blood Gaming, it was a slightly better finish to the day for them. They will pick up a few placement points, 2, I believe, and also 7 kills for them. Now, you know, how they were playing last season, Elfish, they were picking up a lot of their points, you know, running around just dominating teams on Storm Point. So they've shown a little bit more of that kind of style and flair here in Game 6, but it certainly was a far cry from the team we know that made it to LAN. And having a look at our placement timeline here, Onyx finishing off the day with a win. As you said, we'll certainly shove them a little bit higher up the timeline. I think specifically this Group A-V-B matchup, we're seeing the teams who play the game, you know, with better macro being rewarded here. That's why Moist has done well. That's why Onyx has done very well today. And a lot of the other teams who don't play in that fashion, IBG, sometimes, certainly, you know, teams like, I don't want to say like MD White, Golden Sage, trying to take those fights, really struggled in today's lobbies.
Yeah, indeed. I suppose you have that high risk, high reward kind of playstyle, and sometimes that does bounce back in your face. But if you play the more consistent style, inevitably you're going to see the fruits of that rewarding you over the long term. And yeah, I mean, that is, again, just exactly what has happened. So just reinforces exactly where you need to be if you want to be one of those teams that's going to be going overseas, competing internationally from the APAC South region. You do need to be putting on top 2, top 3, top 4 kind of placements over pretty much every game you're playing if you want to be topping a lobby and then doing that for 5 or 6 days in a row.
Yeah, I think as we saw, you need to be averaging maybe, what is it, like 5th or 6th to get through if you're trying to get to that, you know, roughly 120 points at the end of the split. So it's really a tough ask. You have to be very good throughout the entirety of the split, really, to be one of those 5 teams. When you've got 10 or 11 spots like NA, you can afford to be a little more inconsistent. But yeah, in APAC South, man, it's cutthroat here.
It is indeed. Let's take a look at the scores for today before we close things out, and you'll see who's going to take away all those big points. Moist in first, Onic in second. No surprises there. 505 in third. We had that called as well. But the middle of the pack was a little bit more interesting. Akuma and Eternal Photon to round out the top 5.
Yeah, okay, 40 points each. I mean, we have to shout out the 92 points by Moist. That genuinely could be a standard-setting series score. Oh, that was a great alliteration, actually. For Moist Esports there at 92 points, because that is a phenomenal score across 6 games. I think we were talking about some of the previous high points that we had seen. And if we go back to Split 2, that would have been the 3rd highest score overall. You know, we had a 96 and a 93 last time. So, yeah, just an absolute killer day by Moist. And that's on top of the fact that they played 1 game as a duo. And by the way, it was apparently Walty's power went out. So, you know, we can't even blame the game for that one. Just a real unfortunate situation, and they still managed to come second.
I think they would have won that game if they had 3, to be honest. But it is what it is. Take a look at Moist over the course of today. Did really well for themselves. Did end up placing outside of the top 5 once in that final game, but look, they didn't place outside top 6, so I think you can be happy with how that's gone today. And quite frankly, some of those seconds could have been firsts had things gone their way, so it could have been an even bigger day, to be honest.
Yeah, interesting that the kill points dropped off a little bit. Obviously not for game 5, but certainly for game 6 there in terms of where they were, but I guess that's also probably related to them coming 6th and not, you know, say getting an extra squad wipe or 2 that, you know, might have got them the extra placement at the same time. But either way, it's a phenomenal performance from these guys, and yeah, just really sets them up well to be a team that doesn't have to worry in the regional finals this time. Because, you know, last time we had teams who were basically locked in when they got into regional finals, and essentially, you know, they were just playing for the money at that point, just trying to, you know, put as much in the bank account as they could, but they were safe and confident in the fact that they could move forward towards LAN.
All right, let's take a look at the standings overall for the season thus far. It is just the 1 day worth of competition, so not really too much to read into just yet, but you can see the 25 points there for Moist, going all the way down to Casuals picking up 1, and Homogird, unfortunately, from today do miss out because they came 20th. You don't get any points for 20th, but something for everyone apart from them and apart from the teams that didn't play. But yeah, we'll expect a lot of moving and shaking when we do get to see Group C playing as well. I think obviously Dreamfire, Tom Young Kung in particular are going to be some interesting teams.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, even just talking about sort of getting towards Split 2 and then the championships, maybe moving a little bit too far ahead, but I'm just going to mention it now because I think it's a fun little tidbit as well, because the points you get from both of the lands work towards getting you a slot and the championship, and Moist and Onic are already there, by the way. So they performed so well at the land that they have already guaranteed their position in that. Dreamfire would have gone a long way towards getting there as well. And yeah, so really cool that we've already had a couple of teams that have you know, sort of stamped their name on the global circuit this year, and will get a guaranteed chance to do so at champs, if not at the Split 2 playoffs as well.
Yeah, pretty nice first day of competition. Felt like there wasn't really much of a competition for first, but everything else was kind of still up in the air, even going into Game 6, which is always exactly what you want to be seeing. Good competition. And look, I think it's going to be another competitive season. We always see a bit of a tussle around those positions, like 3, 4, 5 in particular. I think normally number 1, number 2, you're kind of like, all right, that's kind of like a shoe-in to go through to those international positions. But either way, you know, I think it's those positions in down towards the 5th kind of area that are going to be what's most interesting heading into the final days. But look, we've got a long way to go before we get there. So lots of good Apex still yet to come.
Yeah, so much. It was such a fun Split 1, and I think, yeah, Split 2 honestly is going to be a blast as well. The meta's obviously changed up quite a bit. We're seeing, you know, with this very heavy Catalyst usage,